All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to this evening City Council meeting, February 2nd. We have an established quorum. Pam, can you do the roll call for us, please?
Vice Mayor Cirque,
Present.
Councilmember Reardon,
Here.
Councilmember Swift,
Here.
Mayor Gunselman, absent. Councilmember Feist, absent.
So we do have a quorum, so we can.
And we have
proceed.
quorum, ma'am.
All right, thank you. At this time, will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mayor Gunselman is unable to make this meeting this evening. She is ill, so we'll run it to the best of my ability as a thorn between two roses here on either side. At this time, the public forum. The public is permitted to address the City Council on items not appearing on the agenda. Comments may not exceed 5 minutes. In accordance with state law, however, no action or discussion may take place on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. The City Council may respond to statements made or questions asked, or may request staff to report back at a future meeting on the matter. The exceptions under which the City Council may discuss and/or take action on items not appearing on the agenda are contained in Government Code paragraph 54954.2. Public comment on any item listed below shall be limited to 5 minutes unless additional time is permitted by the mayor or council. Is there anyone in the audience or on Zoom who would like to address the council? We just started public forum. If there's anyone that would like to speak on any matter that is not on our posted agenda, now is the time. Well, your timing is timely. If you'd like to introduce yourself after.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
My name is Oregon. I am a former planning commissioner, to my understanding, and I'm just going to read my statement. Read the statement that I have. And there's 2 different documents that I'll be referring to. The one that has some highlighted material will be the first document I reference. And then there's another document. And then on top of it, if you want a copy of my statement for any reason, I could email that at another time. So I wanted to provide the council with a statement regarding me being terminated from the Planning Commission. Although I was informed by Tom Dubois that I was on for 1 year, and it's been 9 months, and said 2 years and probably more, this has happened. I wasn't provided good reason for this decision because Councilman Feist repeatedly failed to answer my calls or texts after last week. She basically informed me this like last Thursday, and I know that you were making decisions on Saturday at a special meeting. I took my appointment to the commission seriously as both a business owner and resident of downtown Sutter Creek. Whenever I found something that I thought was incorrect or should be improved, I suggested improvements or corrections. I have encountered resistance both from staff and other commissioners with this approach. As far back as June 25, I suggested the commission and staff certain changes to the reports the commission receives in connection with applications for short-term rentals. This was the primary work of the commission that I noticed since I've been there, besides approving minutes and sign ordinances. The first suggested, noted that there was a wrong CEQA exemption was being used for these purposes. Staff corrected this issue and now uses the correct reference to CEQA. I also suggested certain conditions of approval be revised, and that's the document that I have provided to you. Please see the attached. I suggested that items 5, 6, and 7 should be included in the application. This was supposed to be taken up at a later meeting and given direction to staff, but that has not occurred. Items 17, 18, 19, and 20 are statements of facts, not conditions. The conditions listed are all conditions that the applicant for short-term rentals has to comply with. The last 4 conditions are factually accurate, but not conditional. Staff advised that they should stay as conditions even though an applicant is not responsible or able to satisfy them. They should be separate statements of fact. Both staff and commissioners pushed back on wanting to do any additional work to improve the basic staff report conditions. The more serious problem is illustrated with the proposed changes to commission resolutions, and that's the second document I gave you. The municipal code states the provisions that the commission is supposed to use in making short-term rental approval process. However, those have never been provided to the commission during my tenure as a commissioner as of April 2025. Instead, the resolution language below the ordinance, the second paragraph, is the language that the commission has been using. I would think that the commission and staff would be interested in citing the correct basis for the commission's decisions, as those are the bases required by law. I note, however, that when staff provided a report to City Council for an appeal of the commission's decision to deny a short-term rental in the historic district at 23 Main Street in October 2025, staff provided the correct ordinance to the council. This is the first time I've ever seen the correct ordinance. The commission unanimously denied the application, despite staff recommending it be approved because we needed tourism housing. Staff similarly recommended the council overrule the commission and grant the appeal. The council unanimously decided not to do so. However, this calls into question whether the staff or the commission is the body making policy. If the commission has committed an error in denying the application by misapplying the law, for example, or taking an inappropriate factor into consideration, it would have been appropriate for staff to recommend to the council to reverse that decision and correct the error, as I see them as a technical assistance body, based on my prior experience. However, when the decision was appropriately considered and is based purely on policies grounds, it is, in my appropriate...
30 seconds, Ms. Damiani.
In my opinion, inappropriate for staff to recommend reversing the commission's policy. After noticing the municipal code differed from the guidelines to staff reports on short-term rentals, I handed out the handle at the next meeting in November, saying we needed to conform our reports to what our resolution language to what's the actual Muni code language.
Time is up, ma'am.
This was put off, and I'm going to finish. I'm sorry, because it's too important to me.
I feel
I'm
we can
sorry.
extend for another minute.
That is up to you, Ms. Mayor.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so
An additional minute.
they said
1
they
minute.
would go on, put it on the next meeting. It wasn't in the meeting. They didn't include it in the minutes in case somebody wanted to see it. And so the commission, they expressed little interest. To date, it's never been brought up. And I can only conclude that terminating me from my position as commissioner is simple retaliation for pointing out errors that have been made by staff or the commission in the past. I have a distinguished career in government. I've drafted regulation, statutes, and created policy, both at the state government, nationwide, and even nationally. I worked for the White House, the governor's office, legislature, White House staff, the United Nations, local governments, and community-based organizations. In all that, I've never seen such opposition to simply correcting policies and procedures as I've experienced my brief tenure as a planning commissioner here. I've missed one meeting out of 10. The chairs missed 40%. 4 meetings, but he has been reappointed. This termination has been handled disrespectfully, in a disrespectful manner to me personally, and has been unprofessional and has not reflected well on the city.
Miss Mayor, time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm really sorry because I did take this position seriously, and I have 30 years of integrity and loyalty. And why this has happened
Thank you.
is beyond.
Is there anyone else in the audience or on Zoom that would like to address the council? I think. City managers report. Tom?
I was going to respond to Laura just to say, I'm sorry if I misspoke. The council appointments are January to January when I told her it was a year. So she had the 9 months. And then, as you guys know, you each pick a planning commissioner, and Councilmember Feist has picked a new person for this coming year. Maybe if you guys see her, run into her, you can share that. No, I'll do the same.
I'm sorry. So she did not start in January when,
No, she started,
Laura?
mid-year, and
Okay.
when I was explaining the role to her, I said a year, but I should have said
Calendar year.
calendar year. Yeah.
okay. Thank
So-
you.
Anyways, quick update because we have a presentation tonight. First of all, and for Councilmember Reardon didn't make the special meeting, so I thought I'd spend a second on the priorities we discussed. And I attempted to capture them as best I could. We didn't actually write them out on Saturday. So it's not on the agenda tonight, but if you guys have comments on this, maybe you can talk to me after the meeting and we can tweak some of the wording. But the priorities we have for 2026 are a focus on wastewater, our new wastewater plant. So we're going to continue our planning and design, but with a special focus on funding in 2026. For economic development, we're going to focus on supporting tourism and also seeking out new job creation opportunities. We added 2 new priorities. The one was on code enforcement, and really resolving some long outstanding violations, and also making sure we're discouraging new issues from rising. And then the 4th priority was a high-performing city team. So we want to foster team development through training, empowerment, and performance metrics. And then I put it kind of as a foundation. So strong financial management and working within our budget underlies everything we do. So those are the priorities the council discussed and agreed upon. And again, if you guys want to tweak the wording, maybe we can do that in one-on-one meetings, and I'll try to put things together. And just to give you some quick updates. So since our last meeting, we've been talking about putting meters in the collection system to measure some of our I&I progress. And we've talked that over with Schneider and Hydroscience, and we've come up with a plan, and I think Dan put in an order today. We also had a meeting with the Regional Water Board last week. This was a follow-up to the joint water balance, so Ione and Mule Creek were there as well. Everybody is talking about planning new systems, new additions. We brought Schneider there to the meeting, and everybody's going to basically have individual meetings with the water board to share more detailed plans. And I would say the water board commented they felt like we were the furthest ahead. Mule Creek is talking about more spray fields, and Ione's continuing to talk about more disposal, increased capacity for the tertiary plant to support the city itself. But basically the water board's waiting to get details from everybody. We continue to have our regular meetings with Schneider as we work through some of the regulatory issues. And then tonight on consent, there's authorization to just get ready to submit for a state revolving fund. On the economic development front, next Wednesday, we're having a session for small businesses on using AI and how it can help various ways. And then in your next council meeting, we're going to have a discussion about, there's a company that's approached the city about a marijuana dispensary. And so I just want to have an information discussion with council to see what the appetite for that is. On the code enforcement side, since our planning meeting, we've been identifying some potential resources, and Derek and I had a good discussion last Friday about elements in our muni code that kind of apply to some of the situations we have. And then on high performing teams, starting discussions with department heads to kind of get ideas for things we can do, and been looking at kind of our staffing and making some adjustments there. And then in terms of other things, I'm sorry, Councilmember Feist isn't here. She actually started this project. She went out and cleaned up the planter there. And then Public Works staff has, I think, really made it look nice. Some plants and mulch. Also, you can see Bryson, the bathroom up there is coming along very quickly. I think we're ahead of schedule. They poured a new sidewalk, which is in that second picture. We also were surprised. We got a large water bill. It looked like there was a water leak at Miners Bend. So we've identified that problem. That's being repaired or has been repaired. And then in addition to the plants, there was also some cleanup on Main Street itself that happened last week. And then just some heads up, I'm going to be out at a city manager conference next week for a couple of days. And then I'm going to be driving to Modesto for a one-day rural infrastructure conference. Hopefully there'll be some good information there about funding. And again, we're kind of in a slow period for events. Sutter Creek Theater has several concerts in February. There's a public speaking series at the old grammar school on February 14th, which I think is Valentine's Day, if I'm not mistaken. So something to consider for date night. And then our upcoming agendas, later on this month, you're going to see a master fee schedule, which our city clerk has been working on. The ACTC annual report. I mentioned this marijuana dispensary discussion. And then we're working on a surveillance policy, and we're going to break the mid-year budget review into two parts and focus on revenue in one meeting and then expenses in the second meeting. And then we also have to have a formal, I guess, resolution to dissolve ACRA to be voted on by all the agencies. It's a little bit after the fact since ACRA is basically gone at this point. But and then in March, we need to extend the moratorium on short-term rentals, do the second part of the mid-year budget review. Again, the police departments continue to look at cameras, so we'll have a kind of camera policy discussion. And then I'm hoping we can get to the tree ordinance. It's kind of on the bubble. And that's my update.
All right.
I have a question on one item you had listed under economic development. We have an ordinance against marijuana dispensaries. So wouldn't you have to change that ordinance in order to have one?
Yeah, we would.
Thank you, Vicky. Any other questions from council? All right. Thank you, Tom. At this time, we have one presentation. I'd like to introduce Mia Huss from the Child Care Resource Referral through the Resource Connection.
I'm gonna pass these out. I'll give them to Pam. Is that what you'd prefer if I give these to you?
You wear multiple hats.
I have with me Sherry Noble. She also works for the Resource Connection. So I just wanted to bring Sherry and I to you guys so you could hear more about the Resource Connection. I know we did have a presentation, so I'll give Pam a minute to pass those out because she's wears multiple hats as well. So I appreciate you guys hosting us though. I do love being here. And you guys aren't used to me talking, so that's also really fun. They have it. Do you have the presentation available? Yeah. No, it's okay. I wasn't sure if you were gonna have it up or not.
I didn't arrange it, but I'll find it in a second. I'm
Okay, you
sorry.
got it?
Sorry about that, Mia.
Oh, no, you're good.
Let me find it.
I'm not used to.
Sorry, Mia, that was my
I'm
fault.
not used to being on the agenda, you guys. I really need to get better
Yeah.
practice myself. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom.
Cool. So, as I said, we are from the Resource Connection. We are specifically from the Resource and Referral Department. So there are multiple parts of the Resource Connection. Most of you have probably heard of WIC. That's what people initially think of, women, infant, children. But we are Resource and Referral, and I find it to be a very critical aspect of the Resource Connection. And if you could go to the next slide, please. So just to explain a little bit about who we are, we make childcare possible. Childcare is an essential economic infrastructure. A lot of people don't think it affects them, but it actually affects every single person in this room and beyond. I always use the example of the line at the bank. So if someone who works at the bank can't find childcare that day, then they show up to work late or not at all. You go to the bank on your lunch break thinking it'll be quick, the line's out the door because that one person didn't show up to work because they couldn't find childcare, and you're not gonna leave a child at home unattended, right? So childcare is such an essential infrastructure, and I just want you guys to keep that in mind going forward. And like I said, resource and referral that's specifically what we focus on. Next slide, please. So the mission and vision of the Resource Connection, we envision strong families, sustainable communities, and successful individuals. And we really just want to engage people in the process of supporting childcare providers, families, and children, because our communities thrive off of that, right? We have a lovely community here in Amador and Sutter Creek in particular, and our families and children are the reason that this place thrives. Next slide, please. So this is just a brief snapshot of our numbers of the last year. So we've supported over 300 childcare providers and over 3,000 children, as well as over 570 families we've serviced in the past year. So I'm going to let Sherry talk a little bit. I'll be talking a lot, but I promise I won't talk too much. But Sherry's just going to go over the different programs that we host in the Resource and Referral Department.
As Mia mentioned, in the Resource and Referral Department, we have numerous programs. So this slide here gives a snapshot. So we help people who are interested in finding childcare. We give free childcare referrals to licensed childcare centers and family childcare homes. We also have a subsidy department. It has different funding streams. So it's based on need and income. So someone can apply to our eligibility list And when the case manager calls them, we can help pay for their childcare to a certain amount per week or month. And last year we paid over almost 5.8 million in childcare subsidies. The next is childcare provider support. So we have a department that helps people who are interested in becoming family childcare providers or opening centers. We help them with that process. In addition to family, friends, and neighbors, which are licensed exempt providers, and we provide trainings throughout the year and offer assistance. Next slide, please.
That's a lot of money. I'm curious where that money comes from.
It all comes from the California Department. Well, I would say most of it, I would say like 5.7 million comes from the California Department of Social Services.
Oh.
So we have 6
From the
different funding
taxpayers.
streams that come through based on eligibility and need for childcare.
It's taxpayer funded then.
Yes,
Thank you.
correct. And that amount there covers both Calaveras and Amador County. So it's not
Okay.
Amador County specific.
Did those numbers, those initial numbers, did they include Calaveras and Amador County in terms of the number of providers you service and all that
Correct.
business? Thank you.
Yes. I could give more Amador specific. For example, I think I'm going off my brain right now. In Amador County, we have about 33 family childcare homes, and then we have about 12 licensed centers, and then there's a handful of licensed exempt centers.
Thanks.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I think you actually have it later on. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. We also have our emergency childcare bridge, and this is one of the subsidy funding streams. We got this a couple years ago. It's new to us. And so it helps foster families. It's basically an immediate need for childcare and for paying for childcare. So it's immediate, and then it has a trauma-informed care focus on it. And then we have a lending library. We have over 5,000 items in our lending library, which is located in Oak Hill. And then we have a sub office here in Sutter Hill.
Where
And-
is it located? The
The one in Amador County is located at our WIC building.
Okay, it's Sutter Hill.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was not right in front of the mic. And then people can go online and look at what items we have available, and we can rent them. They're free of charge, and it's open to anyone. We have a community resource directory that we publish annually, and it has resources for both Amador and Calaveras County. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we offer trainings. We're required to provide 50 hours of training each year for childcare providers. Next slide, please. And then this one is Amador County specific. It's through Behavioral Health Services Act, and it's our grandparent respite. And so we offer quarterly workshops where grandparents raising grandchildren come together, and then monthly cafes. And they provide 16 hours of paid respite, where there's no need and income eligibility for the grandparent respite program. And then the consumable closet, that is basically grant funded or donations, and that's for childcare providers. And they can come anytime that we're open, and it has crayons, papers, glitter, glue, anything that they might need for their center or home. And then we are open the third Thursday of each month late, because our hours are often their hours. So we want to make sure we stay open late so they have access to those materials.
So as Sherry mentioned, the subsidy payments, the 5 million, that is the more recent number. This is just a snapshot of our 2023, 2024 impact. And I just like to throw it on the slides. I don't like to read each one and explain each one, but I just love to show the impact because that's a lot of big numbers. And I did fail to mention when I first started, and I do apologize, we do service both Amador and Calaveras counties. It's a lot to cover, but still, that's a lot of money in subsidy payments for 2 rural communities when you think about it that way. So I always like to point out as well the stipends administered. That's $500,000 in stipends administered to strengthen the quality of childcare programs in both communities. And that's just a beautiful thing, because one of the things I really find valuable about the work we do is we try to make it as easy as possible for childcare providers to focus on the quality of care, and we can take care of all that extra legwork that you don't have to worry about finding glitter glue that day. We have it for you. We can take care of that. So it's just a really fun part of the job, truthfully, to be able to support the providers. Next slide, please. So of course, the city of Sutter Creek is very unique, and you guys do have 2 family childcare homes, and you have a licensed childcare center and one licensed exempt center, which is typically an after-school program. So I would consider like the ELOP program. That's probably what that is. I'm not sure. And you guys have a really longstanding great childcare provider here at Gold Star Preschool, and she specifically moved from Jackson to Sutter Creek because it was easier for her to run her business in the city of Sutter Creek. So I don't know how it was easier for her, but thank you, City of Sutter Creek, for making it easier for a childcare provider to run her business.
Is that the one at the Catholic Church,
Yes.
Mia?
Yes. Next slide, please. So the Resource Connection has been around for 45 years, and we just love being around, truthfully. I love the work that we do. We love the work that we do. We do the annual Celebrate Our Children Festival. Julia is very familiar with that. It's a wonderful event. We do it every year. Ours this year is on the same day as the duck race, but last year it was too, and they had come over right after the duck race or came to our event and then to the duck race. So I thought that was a really amazing collaboration, and we didn't even know we were collaborating. But this year it's at the Italian Picnic Grounds, so even closer to the Sutter Creek Duck Race. So we'll funnel people your way, and you guys can funnel people ours. That'll be a secret deal. I'll talk to Claire about it. And then, as Sherry mentioned, we have provider night. We keep our hours open late the third Thursday of every month, so providers can come get support one-on-one with us. Our consumable closet and lending library, and the many workshops we do. We recently had a first aid CPR workshop. We had 11 people get certified. That was a wonderful event. Next slide, please. So how you can support us. It's so interesting to have nonprofits come here and talk to you guys, because why are we coming to talk to you? Why do you guys care, right? So like I said, childcare is an economic infrastructure. So just when you guys are making decisions, please keep in mind families and children and local childcare centers and providers. Come tour our office. Our main office is in McCollum Hill, but it's a good drive. You don't die when you cross the river. I cross the river every day and I'm okay. So I promise it's okay. You can also attend your local Child Care Council meetings. Julia is very aware of the Child Care Council process, and I thank you for all the work that you've done on that. It's very cool to be able to take the work that you've done and continue that on. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if you have more questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. Our contact information, if you scan the QR code on the one-pagers I gave you, you can find our contact information. Just also remember to prioritize childcare centers and providers in your general plan and your housing elements. When you look at that, make sure there's friendly ordinances for families, children, and childcare providers. Next slide, please. And I just want to thank you guys so much for allowing us to speak and give you some more information, and definitely encourage you to look into some of the programs that we offer. And obviously, if you have any questions, we'll definitely take those.
Yeah, I have one question, and maybe you could summarize. Do you find there is a trend in easing regulations for cities to try to get licensed centers or homes, or is it becoming more strict as the state?
Yeah, I was gonna say, could you answer that? That would be great.
I don't know, Erin might.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the state has actually made requirements that when we adopt our general plans and then our zoning ordinances, that those are by right uses, the
Mhm.
childcare.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Right.
I think it has gotten easier.
Oh, good.
And I
Good.
would agree with you. It is a lot easier, and it's so refreshing to see that as well. I would say the biggest problem that both Amador and Calaveras face is the infrastructure aspect of things. As you saw, the numbers for childcare providers in Sutter Creek were very low, and it's hard because where do you see a childcare center, right? So that's something I always like to keep in mind is when new developments come into play, maybe see if they're interested in having the infrastructure for a childcare center. I just, that's the biggest issue. It is easier though, but infrastructure is always a problem.
And where does Sutter Creek fall in terms of need, in terms of families that are coming to you for on wait list? Obviously, when I was back, I chaired the Child Care Council for 3-4 years through the district, and always knew that there was always a shortage. But how does Sutter Creek sit kind of in general? Give us some feedback in terms of need and demand.
Need. We do receive referrals for childcare for Sutter Creek specifically quite often. And usually those families, we have to give them they could pick a radius of willingness to travel 10, 20, 30 miles. And that's often what happens in our counties is people have to travel. And then what was the second question?
Oh,
Sorry.
just that kind of summarizes
Okay.
it right there. Yes, thank you.
I had a question. So I guess it was implied, but is there a shortage in, are there long wait lists or what is the situation with?
Yes, of course.
Yes, there is definitely a shortage, and especially in infant and toddler care and community care licensing, which is the governing license body. They consider infants 0 to 2. And so there's definitely a shortage of infant toddler and then overnight or weekend care. That's
Yeah.
definite need.
And then you kind of mentioned it, but if you're going around talking to cities, I think one of the big levers is we're talking about our impact fees tonight. You can have an exemption. Cities could waive fees for childcare centers. And I think underlying that when you go to these cities is probably a good idea.
I'm so glad you're thinking about that, Tom. Thank you.
And Sutter Creek faces, from, I don't know if this has changed, our kind of average income as a community drives many families away from the state preschool program, which is a free program to low-income eligible families. So it doesn't mean that Sutter Creek has less need. It's just that we are restricted, or families are restricted from applying to some programs because of the financial restriction. Like you can raise a family on less money.
Usually each year, the California Department of Social Services or California Department of Education, they raise the income levels and they usually go off the state median income and it's around 85%, state preschool, sometimes 100. So it's a challenge still.
Yeah. So it just means our families have technically fewer opportunity. So anyway,
I would
Thank
say
you.
in Amador County, a lot of families travel just 45 minutes to get childcare.
Yeah.
And then they have to go to their work and then come back. And so it's a lot of time in the car.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
No, appreciate the work you do. Way back when, 40-something years ago, my wife had a home childcare for years and years and years, and we worked with you guys early on in your formation. And so we appreciate it and recognize the value.
Stay strong.
Thank you.
Thank you.
guys.
At this point, we have 2 sets of minutes in our packet, one from the general meeting on January 20th, and then the special meeting regarding the priorities on the 24th. Are there any corrections that members you would like before we make a motion to approve?
On the second minutes on the Saturday special meeting, it shows that I attended and I did not. It also, just FYI, references 5 priorities that you all came to, but it's really 4. Just FYI, no big deal. But
And Pam, I was not at the meeting on the 20th.
And Madam Mayor, I don't have a correction, but I do want to make a comment about the first set of minutes. On page 18 of the packet, it's about near the bottom. And it said, after city council discussion, direction was given to staff to continue the work towards a permanent STR ordinance with the item to be presented first before the planning commission. Once the planning commission makes a recommendation, the draft ordinance would then be presented to the city council for consideration. I'm just bringing that up because I want to make sure that that's remembered when we talk about the STR item that's on our agenda tonight.
Thank you, Jim. Do I have a motion then
Hold-
to,
Can you clarify, council member, what change would you like to reflect on that portion?
I'm not making a change at all. I'm just wanted to bring it to our attention because I think it applies to tonight's agenda.
Oh, I understand. May I speak, Vice Mayor?
yes,
Mayor Gunselman had pointed out a portion on the January 20th minutes, and it had to do with the closed session. And she would like to reflect that there was a vote that had taken place during that time.
Hmm.
And after we conferred with the city attorney, that vote must be reflected on the record. So we would like to add that to the record.
Thank you, Pam.
You're welcome, ma'am.
So with that addition of that, Jim, did you have something else? I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to make a motion.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to say with the addition of that, what you just said, Pam. And the other clarity on attendance, I would move to approve. Can we move to approve both sets in this discussion? Move to approve both sets. Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moving in second for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Motion passes to approve the minutes as corrected. Consent agenda. Do we would like to pull that or go straight to a vote? I would like to pull just for some questions and clarification. Jim or Dan?
I'm okay. You go ahead and pull what you got there.
In the resolution on page 27 of the packet, the first whereas paragraph reads, whereas the city of Sutter Creek, parentheses, quote, city is a local government located in Amador County running a regional wastewater plant servicing the city of Sutter Creek. I would like to replace the word running to either managing or operating to fit in with kind of the professional, not to say running isn't professional, but a more definitive term in how we are using our wastewater servicing. So I would like to replace the word running with operating. In the second paragraph, it reads, whereas the city's wastewater treatment plant is disposed of treated wastewater, I would like to have it specific that the city's current wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, so the second
And-
paragraph, current,
The city's current wastewater treatment plant.
and where was that first change?
That's the second paragraph. In that same paragraph, the last reference, sentence, golf course owned by the city of Ione and cooperation, I believe the word with needs to be inserted in front of cooperation. With cooperation from the city of Ione and Mule Creek. And then lastly, the third whereas reads, the system's complex water balance challenges have resulted in multiple disputes, et cetera. I believe to highlight challenges in this resolution, since we're really trying to go in that direction and point out these as hindrances, is I would like that's whereas to read, whereas challenges from this system's complex water balance have resulted. It just highlights the challenges rather than the water balance. And
Yeah,
then
I'm sorry, I'm trying to follow along here. That was which paragraph?
the third one, Tom,
Got it, okay.
and then
So
just,
instead of complex, you want challenging?
no, just take out challenges, move it to the beginning of that sentences. So it would read, whereas challenges from this system's complex water balance have
All right.
resulted. And then just the spacing in the fourth paragraph, is that any reason? That's just a technical, I don't know, whatever. So those are my three recommendations, just to not change the intent or the message of the resolution, just the wording.
In the same note, on the same page, as long as we're cleaning some things up, the bolded last section, Now therefore be it resolved that the city, it should just say council. There's a T at the end of council. So if we're cleaning things up, you might want to drop that T. Anything else?
So do I have a motion then to adopt the resolution authorizing the city manager to sign and file financial assistance application with the resolution as amended?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Nay? Motion carries. Thank you, Pam. Putting that together. Ordinances and public hearing, we have none. Administrative agenda, Nexus study and presentation. I'm going to hand this over to Tom and Aaron for presentation.
Yeah, I'm going to kick it off. We actually have Cindy Young with Goodwood Consulting is on Zoom. She's going to present. Maybe you could shift it over a little bit so they can see her for a second. Cindy, are you able to speak? Just want to make sure your mic works.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can. Great.
Perfect.
Okay, you can slide it.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. My name is Cindy Yan. I'm with Goodwin Consulting Group. The city retained my firm to update the capital facilities fee program Nexus study. My predecessor actually worked on the last update that was done in 2008. So it's been quite a while, and legal requirements in the Nexus impact fee space now require more frequent updates. So this is a culmination of more than a year of work with Tom and Aaron, who have provided so much support on this update. So we're here to present the newly calculated fees, which are maximums, and we'll get into more detail about that as we go through the presentation. Next slide, please. And so the purpose of tonight's presentation is we're going to talk about why the city is updating its capital facilities fee, what infrastructure is funded by the CFF program, as well as how the fees comply with both AB 1600, which is the Mitigation Fee Act, as well as the more recently adopted AB Assembly Bill 602. And then finally, key policy choices before the council and what we're asking the council to do. Next slide, please. Why impact fee matters. New development increases demand on public facilities, more roads, storm drainage facilities, police facilities, and so impact fees ensure that growth pays its fair share. An integral part of the impact fee law is that impact fees cannot fund existing deficiencies or O&M costs. So it's purely to make sure that future development pays its own way as far as infrastructure needs go. And then it also, to some extent, protects existing residents from subsidizing growth going forward. And so there are two main legal frameworks that provide behind development impact fees. Specifically, AB 1600, the Mitigation Fee Act, was enacted in the late 80s, and it requires a reasonable relationship between new development facilities needs and the resulting calculated fees. As I mentioned earlier, impact fees cannot fund existing deficiencies, and fees must be proportional to growth and transparent and regularly updated as required by AB 602. Next slide, please.
Yeah, and Cindy, Unfortunately, we can't control the sound system here. You're coming over very loud, so you can maybe
Oh.
sit back from your mic just a little.
Okay, I'm
it's not
so
your
sorry
fault.
about that.
No, it's our side, but thank you.
I'll try to be more quiet. So AB 602 was approved in 2021 that went in effect in 2022. It essentially states that any impact fees updated subsequent adopted after 2022, it needs to be more transparent and more accountable. It requires a review of existing levels of service. And then if there's a new level of service that's required for new development, we have to justify that, as well as review assumptions that were used in prior fee studies. It also, prior to AB 602, most residential fees were on a per unit basis. But AB 602 now requires that fees be calculated on a per square foot basis. So smaller homes will have a much lower fee than a home that's twice the size of, and then it also, prior to AB 602, it required a 10-day public notice. Now that's been extended to 30-day public notice before the public hearing, as well as a requirement that Nexus studies be updated once every 8 years. As I mentioned earlier, the last time the CFF was updated was in 2008, so it has been quite some time since then. And then the last thing, AB 602 also expands public posting of fees and studies and reports on the city's website. Next slide, please. So now that we're done with some of the history and the legal requirements for the 2026 CFF fee update, it looks at growth projections based on build out of the entire general plan, whereas the prior fee study only went out 20 years. So the fee study only went through 2027. With full build out of the general plan, we're looking at approximately another 6,800 residential units within the city and nearly 1.2 million square feet of non-residential development in the future. Next slide, please.
So just to pause for a second. So if you had any questions on kind of the background of the legal framework, again, this is a really key point. This is maximum build out. This could be 200 years from now.
That's what I wanted to make a
That's the-
comment about, yeah.
Yeah, so this is a methodology to say, under our current zoning, what if everything was completely built out? How many roads would we need? How many storm drains? And we calculate how much money would be needed for that. And that establishes this maximum rate, and every new unit would contribute towards that. But probably saying this is a forecast is a little strong. It's just the maximum possible build out.
But my question is then, if you use these maximum build out numbers, what effect does that have on your fees? You know, are they
I mean, it's
grossly overstated?
it's probably more
needs.
accurate than whenever they did it in 2008, trying to forecast where we would be in 2027. This kind of takes time out of it, right? It just says,
Mhm.
eventually how much money will we need for new streets according to our zoning? And every one
Mhm.
unit contributes a little bit, right? So I don't know, Cindy, if you want to answer
I mean,
about the methodology.
Yeah.
Just maybe another way to put it would be, will our actual growth numbers be proportionate? Or are they going to be out of proportion? The fee is going to be out of proportion because they're based on these maximum build out numbers.
Are you like the fee is spread out over too much development that's going to take too long to complete? Is that what you're kind of saying?
Well, I'm
That's not
more
what
the
I-
opposite. I think,
Yeah, he was saying the opposite.
I think they're too high. I'm
Okay.
I'm concerned that we're setting them too high because we're using these maximum build-out numbers, which aren't realistic.
Jim, if I could add to your concern there and then maybe help clarify the question if this is true. I think that the maximum is a data point. And after that, staff, Cindy, others look at it and say, okay, obviously that's way too much. We're not going to be charging that. So there's some method, and I hope to hear what that is tonight, that leads to staff's recommendation with regard to, okay, what are we going to change them to now based on that
Right.
existing data point? But that's just a starting
Right.
place.
But Aaron's point is right, Jim, that actually using the maximum goes the other way because we're spreading
Yeah,
the
I
cost
guess.
over more units. Not if we spread over fewer units, the cost will be higher.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
So with impact fees, there are typically three allocation methodologies. One is a standard approach. So based on the existing level of service in the city, what is that standard? And then that's applied proportionally to new development. So whether we assumed half of general plan build out or full general plan build out, the fee is calculated proportionately. And then another approach is the plan-based approach, which is what we're using to calculate the road and the drainage fees. Is it looks at the plan that's needed to serve full build out that's allocated to the build out between existing and future development based on demand factors. But Tom is absolutely right. This approach takes out the timing, and because none of us have a crystal ball about how much development is going to happen and when it's going to happen, this removes that uncertainty. But at the same time, with AB 602 and the requirement to update fees at least once every 8 years, and more, in my mind, the more frequently the better, because then you have a mechanism to um, reset and then determine, well, is our fee too low, too high? And the more often the fees get updated, the closer to make to ensure that future development actually funds it, pays for its fair share.
So why don't we go ahead, Cindy?
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm sorry, I didn't
I
catch
think
that.
so. I think so. I guess, let me just be like a specific example of, that we're going to need 45,000 square feet to house our, all the employees that are going to be required. So I see that and I think, wow, we're getting the number's going to be too high. But what you're saying is if you divide that by number of residents, you're going to get a lower per resident. But my predicting that we're going to need such a large, say, office capacity, does that drive up unrealistically our fee schedule?
No, because if we had, let's say, assumed only half of general plan build out were to occur, so only an additional 3,000 units as opposed to 6,000, we would apply that 3,000 to the existing level of service for general city facilities, and then we would end up at the same fee rate.
Okay, that's what I was concerned about being proportional to actual rather than projected. Thank you.
I'm just curious, this is Julia. have you ever experienced a situation where cities have set fees 4 years or 8 years down the line? They go, oh, that's too high, and lowered them? It's that.
Yes.
Oh,
Well, no, I've actually never seen, because costs have just typically do not um, increase with the annual escalators. And
Correct.
so I personally have not seen a fee be too high. Um, in most instances, it's the fees are too low, and then council, public agencies then have to, um, it gets recalculated, and the more often that the fees get updated, there's a reset, and you're given the opportunity to catch up with any potential shortfalls.
I can see that as now a benefit having to do this every 8 years.
So again, if the fees aren't high enough, then new development doesn't pay its fair share and the existing residents have to pay more for the infrastructure.
Did-
Great.
Is she saying that the maximum allowables aren't high enough?
Well, mostly my
No, I-
Colorado City has
Yeah.
way more experience than I do. My experience is cities don't go with the maximum.
I know they don't,
Right.
Yeah.
So
but you
Yeah,
Yeah,
just,
get there.
because there are there's obviously you want to collect at a level that ensures future development pays its fair share, and that's what the calculated maximum is. But then there's also the other side, that you want to make sure that the fees don't prohibit development.
Right.
It's so high that it makes housing unfeasible.
So
And
we
so
got-
it's a
it's not-
double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It's a balancing act.
yeah, and it's like
it's a good
voodoo
discussion.
science trying to figure out where that number is.
Yeah. So we got a lot tonight. So I think this is a good pause to ask some questions, but let's get through some more of this. Then we'll come back to this question of what's the right
Right.
level.
Great. So with the fee calculations, it's to some extent based on the CIP that's adopted by the city. And we have 5 fee categories that that's included in the CFF. Police, general city facilities, which consolidates several components of the existing fee study, parks and recreation, transportation improvements, and then drainage improvements, which is a new proposed fee component. Next slide, please. And then, so as we mentioned, the rates that you will see during this presentation, they are the maximum supportable rates. They are the highest legally defensible fee that the city can collect. Council can choose to collect at a lower rate. However, that the difference between the rate that is set and the maximum supportable rate cannot be reallocated to future development. And the fees that are shown are based on the facilities costs, and as well as existing service standards and growth projections. And this is not the fee that the council must adopt. It is the maximum supportable fee. So the city may choose to adopt lower fee for policy reasons, economic development reasons. There are a variety of reasons why cities choose to adopt a lower fee, and it doesn't have to be proportional. So you don't have to apply a 50% reduction across all of the land uses. You can choose to lower the commercial fee at a higher rate than the residential fee there, as long as the impact fee law just requires that for the maximum supportable fee, there's a justification for the calculation. Next slide, please. And then, so as we mentioned, we have the police, general city, parks and recreation, transportation, and then the new drainage component. Next slide, please. And then, so the drainage component has been added to address the city's stormwater needs. And then the general city facilities fee consolidates the prior city hall, courtyard, and historical facilities fee. The administrative fees are now streamlined, and then the calculated fees also reflect updated costs and standards, and the planning horizon, instead of a 20-year build out, now it's the full general plan build out. I will say that the amount of development that was anticipated to occur between 2008 and 2027, probably less than 5% of that has materialized. So using the full general plan build out removes the uncertainty associated with timing, and it's a more defensible calculation. So next slide, please. The next 5 slides, there's one for each of the components. So with the police fee, it looks at the existing full-time equivalent sworn and non-sworn officers per 1,000 persons served, as well as the space that's available for those officers. And we then project out how, based on that level of service, how much remaining development and development at build out of the general plan, that how much space that they'll need for that, and the total cost associated with that is about 14.9 million, of which 12.6 is allocated to future development. And then the resulting maximum fees are shown here. It's 79 cents per square foot for residential, and then it ranges from 20 to 66 cents per office.
Per square foot, right?
I'm sorry, is there a question?
Per square foot, right?
Yes, per square foot.
Yep. So this is a good maybe place, because we're going to go through each fee. So do you have any questions about how this is calculated?
do have a question though, not necessarily that exact question, but Aaron, you could answer this. How do these fees, how do they differ from conditions of approval on a project that would have to put in drainage and pay for that drainage? Then on top of that, then do they have to pay this per square, cost
Yeah,
per square foot for
This is
drainage?
the citywide stormwater system. So if we had 8,000 more residents, we would need more storm drainage, not just on their property, but kind of across the city. So this pays for that infrastructure.
Mhm.
So I
So then
think
it would be in addition to, say, a developer came in with a project and we put conditions of approval on it and one of those would be to do his storm drain
On their own.
infrastructure for that project, then they would still be subject to the storm drain.
Yeah, because
fee?
that money then would go to the storm drains that lead to their project or lead away from their project to get into our wastewater treatment center.
Thank you.
So if you
Yeah.
did the roads in your development,
Right.
but now the 500 new people are going to drive on the other roads in Sutter Creek, and those fees go towards those other road improvements, not just the roads in their development.
so most development projects, if they are putting in infrastructure that would otherwise have been funded by the fee program, they likely would ask for fee credits. So credits against impact fees that they would have otherwise have to pay.
And that's negotiable with each developer?
If they are doing a development agreement.
Right.
Otherwise, no.
Okay. Got you. Got you.
Yeah,
So-
development agreements allow a lot of flexibility.
Right. Right. So just to make sure Tom, as you indicated, that we understand the metric here. So the existing level of service is going to be calculated for each one of these areas based on existing services against existing population, so to speak. And then there's factors that build up to this foreseeable future based on the maximum here. And then you back down into it and create the need, the disparate amount between existing and future.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then the future development share is allocated to projected land uses, and then it results in these per square foot fees. So
Right.
if you have 1,000 square foot house, your police fee component would be $790.
Very good.
And then, so similarly for general city facilities, we looked at the existing levels of service for a city hall and courtyard, and then applied those levels to anticipated development through build out of the general plan, and then applying average construction costs. That translates to about $32.6 million, of which 27.6 is allocated to future development. And then it results in a general city facilities impact fee of $1.73 per residential square foot. And then for non-residential, it ranges from 43 cents to $1.44 per square foot. Next slide, please.
So I just want to make sure I understand that according to the text, it's a maximum supportable general city fee of 173.
Yes.
That's the maximum.
Mhm.
These are all maximums.
Yes, these are all maximums. It's the amount that has been calculated and can be
Yeah.
justified. It doesn't obligate the city to levy at those rates.
Correct.
So for the Parks and Rec fee, we looked at the acres existing in the city, and that translates to about 8 acres per 1,000 residents. But the Gold Rush Ranch and has a standard of 4.5 acres per 1,000, which is in line with what the standard is, the level of service is for many other cities. So applying that 4 acres per 1,000 to the future residents, it shows about $50 million being allocated to future development. Now, again, this is full build out of the general plan. And so if it were to be cut in half, then that 50 million would be cut in half, but the resulting maximum fee rates would be the same. And then for Parks and Rec, it's only being allocated to residential development at $3.25 per square foot.
So I have two questions about the Parks and Rec fee. One
Mhm.
is, in the past, the fee was higher than what it's being proposed as this year, so I'd like an explanation about that. Secondly, I'd like to understand why with commercial development, there is 0 Parks and Rec fee charged. Is that by law, or because those people who come to work, obviously, and the people that come to visit them and this and that, they're going to be using Parks and Rec also? So I'm wondering about those two things, please.
It's definitely not by law. It's historically parks and recreation facilities are allocated to residential development, as is the case currently. And it's more if there are regional facilities. The idea is a resident is home 16 hours a day, whereas an employee is at work 8 hours a day, of which maybe only an hour that they have available to use recreation facilities. And so that's historically that's been the industry standard of not allocating Parks and Rec facilities to non-residential development. That's
And
not to say that the city can't do it, just historically that's not been done.
So historically, in the state of California with most cities, is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you for that
Yeah.
clarity.
Some do it, but
But-
again, you have to figure out the hours of use. and-
Sure, yeah.
Your first question, we spent some time kind of delving into details, trying to figure it out. And it looks like with ACRA, their Nexus study was quite a while ago.
Right.
And then the engineering inflation index has been applied and that rate just got very high. And so yes, you're right. This new rate is lower than the current park rate. And you know, and again, it just seems like it hadn't been updated in so long. It just kind of got out of control.
And as a result of that, are there any repercussions looking backward in terms
No.
of who's paid what?
No, I don't think so.
Only if you have a developer come forward and ask for a refund.
Right. And again, all of this stuff we're doing tonight, we're establishing developer impact fees.
Gotcha.
You want them to be legally defensible.
Totally.
And I have seen cities have to give back developer fees either because they didn't execute on their capital improvement plan,
Right.
or they argue that, you know, the fees were too high. So
Could
But-
there,
Good.
Yeah.
could there be a balance in looking at the residential versus commercial, industrial, and office fees on reducing the 325 applied only to residential development and share that to try to take the, try to encourage the residential development without really severely impacting the commercial, office, or industrial end?
So again, you have to be able to justify it. And this fee is much lower than the current ACRA fee. So
So I'm not asking that it would be increased. It's
no, I
just that
understand. I know it looks large.
to reallocate the 325 to
You-
share a little bit.
You have to redo your next.
You
Yeah,
can't just,
so
yeah.
as
ahead.
we get to the overall fee, you'll see that the commercial office and industrial fees are disproportionately higher just because like the transportation fee, a lot of that is being allocated to the non-residential development. And so, yes, it is possible to reallocate, but once the overall picture is presented and all of the fees are combined, you
Bigger
might
pic-
feel differently.
Okay. Thanks for the bigger picture reminder.
Of course. Next, we're the transportation fee. So this is allocated based on few trips generated by existing development and future development. And we had the staff look at what the overall road capacity would need to be to serve general plan build out. And then of the 135 million, about 109 million is allocated to future development. And then so that translates to a residential per square foot fee of about $5.61. And then non-residential, because commercial trip generation is significantly higher than industrial, it ranges from $7.29 per square foot for industrial to $25.24 for commercial. Next slide, please. And then finally, for drainage fees, same thing. We look at the percent imperviousness factor for between existing and future development, and then allocate the 70.2 million total costs to future development. That amounts to about 57.2 million, and that translates to a residential fee of $3.26 per square foot, and then non-residential from $4.13 per industrial square foot to $6.61 per office and commercial square feet. Next slide, please. So this chart compares the existing CFF fees total combined in the gray for residential and commercial, and then the maximum supportable fee in the red. So for the residential fee, it's about a 54% increase, of which some of that is the newly added storm drainage fee. But for the commercial fee is actually a 200% increase over the existing fee.
So any questions about this? I mean, this, we're going to come back to when we start to talk about what's right, what's a good level.
And then so the next two tables compare the proposed maximum supportable fee for residential and commercial uses against areas in the region. Now, it may seem like the maximum supportable fee is higher than most of the cities and county shown except for Elk Grove, but it is important to mention that some of these cities, it's been for some of them over 20 years since the fee was last updated. And so that anytime there's a fee update to reflect current costs, it's going to be much higher than what a fee that was calculated 20 years ago would be.
Do we know when Plymouth fee was last updated?
Um, I
We hope the answer is yesterday.
No,
no, I think it was
That would explain
it
it.
was a while
it
ago.
might be 2019, but I can double
Okay.
check that.
Right, but it's fairly recent.
Right. So again, with this new state law, everybody's going to be updating every 8 years. So
Exactly.
again, I wanted you guys to see this comparison, but I also wanted you to realize how old some of these numbers are so that
Yeah,
if we go too low, they're going to shoot past us.
exactly.
So,
And then so this is another table for the commercial fee where the proposed fee, the newly calculated fee is higher than even Elk Grove.
right. And again, you may think, oh, let's charge the commercial guys, but most cities want to incentivize commercial growth. So
Right.
not only are these old, but there was probably some thought about incentivizing commercial as well when they picked these fees.
Tom, would it be difficult to get the year on each of
I
these
think
things?
it's in the staff report.
Do we have it somewhere? The
yeah.
year that each of these was done, it would,
We have some of them mentioned in the staff report.
okay,
We
okay.
were trying to get all of them, but
I'll double check it.
some
Thank you.
some of the comparable agencies that data was not available.
It says I own in 2005, 2016 and 2018 for Plymouth and the county respectively. So those three comparisons are
Yeah.
7, 8 years, 10 years old, 20 years old.
What page is that on?
33.
Yeah. So again, just overall, we're really asking you for some policy direction tonight. And then we'll have to do the public noticing and then we'd kind of come back to you guys with the actual fee schedule.
Are you going to touch base on the recommendations that
Yeah.
are in the report?
Yeah. But so this is, go ahead, Cindy, start talking
Yeah.
about policy.
Yeah. So as we've mentioned, the fees are maximum rates, and generally fees represent a small portion of the overall development costs. However, having said that, the council may choose to phase in fees. I've seen some council will start at 50% of the calculated maximum and then so phase that in 75% at some point into the future and then 100%, and then it may be time for a fee update, adopt below the maximum and then update fees more frequently so that so that you don't experience such a big jump between fee updates. And then next slide, please.
Can you update at any time or once a year? And is there any there's no more, you can use the current Nexus study out to 8 years, correct?
Yes, I wouldn't recommend updating every year as much as I would love the business, because typically not a lot will have changed in 1 year unless you have a huge development project get approved, or if costs go through the roof, or if you have a new there's new interchange that's needed that was not anticipated as part of a roadway fee program, something like that. But it every 5 years is probably a good, with typical development patterns, a good cycle.
But we
But
could,
Well,
the
maybe is updating the same as increasing your fees?
and it could increase with the engineering index every year.
yes,
Yeah.
every year you're
Well, I know
allowed to.
I know we've increased it for the index.
Yeah.
But can you increase it? Just say, we think it's too low and we want to.
Yeah, you'd go through this process
And you go
again.
through a public hearing and, okay.
Mhm.
But
I
there
just
has
want to know what
there
the
has to
steps
be-
were.
There has to be this Nexus study, which
You
is
have to do it, even though you've already established your allowable maximums and you're below it, you have to have another Nexus study before you can increase?
Not if you're not going to exceed the
don't have to-
maximum.
Yeah,
As long as you don't exceed it, right?
Right.
you could phase in the fees.
Okay.
no, but Cindy, the question is, if 2 years from now we wanted to raise the fees, but it was below the maximum of your Nexus study in 2026, can we do that?
That's a good question. I have not had public agency do that, but let me
I
talk
think I
to.
think you'd potentially be at risk because you didn't do a Nexus study. I think
Mhm.
what you really want to do is one of these, like do the ENR increases in between Nexus studies, or have some policy-based way rather than just to say, 3
Well,
years from now.
you talked about doing the phasing, so,
Yeah,
so you're better off then just to program it, any increases now when you
Mhm.
adopt it, the
Yes.
fees, rather than,
because the
then-
Nexus study is fresh and it's
yeah,
Yes.
okay.
defensible.
All right, thank you.
And then so I know Tom had some recommendations in the staff report, with the proposing the residential at $12, and then the commercial office at $13 per square foot, and the industrial at $9. So the $12 would represent about a 54% increase over, no, sorry, a 12% increase over the existing rate, but 75% of the maximum calculated rate. And then same for the commercial, it represents about 11% increase over the existing rate, and 38% of the maximum calculated rate. So I think the next step is council has to make a decision on what final fee levels they want to see, or how they want, how you want it structured. And then we would move forward with a public hearing and adopt the Nexus study if that's what council desires.
What is the recommendation for the recreation?
So again, this is the maximum that the study found that could support. And there's no magic to my recommendation. I looked at this, I looked at the other cities, tried to factor in kind of the year a little bit. And so, we're currently at 10.5, suggesting to go to 12. Again, looking at those other cities, I think when they do their studies, they're going to end up, much closer to Plymouth, which is at 15. So I just felt like it was in the ballpark, honestly.
Right.
I was,
And again, the park fees decreasing over the past. We're adding a storm drain fee, and we have a lot of issues with rainwater and storm drains.
so your recommendation for the residential is 12,
Right,
square foot, commercial 13, industrial impact
right.
9.
And so again,
And she just went over what the current and what the percentage of max is. But so what is the staff recommendation for Park and Rec?
so we would recommend that you guys pick the overall level, and then we will proportionally adjust the 5 fees based on the Nexus study. So I don't have the precise number for you, but it would be,
Yeah,
correct.
just-
No, because right.
It goes down.
Yeah, so it would be,
Parks and Rec, yeah, loses.
right.
You just do a math problem and figure out proportion.
Yeah, it would be the difference
That would be-
between the 16 shown here and the 12 applied. And then again, the commercial shows we could go up quite a bit. And again, my thinking was you want to incentivize commercial. So kind of going up proportionally was where kind of the 13 came from. And then industrial has, because of its lower usages and impacts, would be 9. Again, that's kind of proportional to what it is today. So I guess the only thing I would recommend, I think you guys should have a discussion and kind of see where you guys are, but a couple of things, when you go lower, what you're really saying is existing residents have to pick up the slack. It's like, where does this other money come from? These fees are only paid when development happens. And so you have more people here
Right.
who have an impact on things. Again, it's good to go below the max, because this is an economic model. There's a lot of assumptions. If you ever had a developer who wanted to fight legally, you can say, well, we recognize that, and that's why we dropped the number, and that's very defensible. I would just caution about going, too far down, because again, you're really saying new developers get off the hook. They're creating increased property value, and they're not paying for the infrastructure.
Is it typical to come up with a number and then have the public hearing? Or do you have the public hearing? I know, of course, you could change it. You haven't adopted it. Was it typical to start the public hearing with a recommendation and then hold the public hearing?
I think we have to have 30-day
Mhm.
30-day notice once we pick
Mhm.
that value. So if you change it, we'd have to wait another 30 days for adoption.
Okay, you
It's-
couldn't adjust it at the public hearing and then adopt.
No, because you would need to notice
Okay,
it. And then the fees would go into effect 60 days after they're adopted.
Jim, it
thank
also,
you.
Jim, it also seems to me that it might be helpful at a public meeting to come with the proposed
Yeah,
answer.
I get
right?
that.
Yeah.
But we've
But
just.
we can't divert from that. Whatever we bring to the public hearing, it's either a yes or a no. There can't be any modifications at the public hearing.
Is that correct?
You can go lower.
You could go.
You can go lower. Okay. So would the safe route be to, this evening, not that we want that as maybe a final solution, but to accept the maximum supportable
No.
I think that's,
and then be able to go down?
I think
That's-
that would just be unreasonable,
That's
seen as
interesting.
unreasonable.
Right.
I think from my perspective, the proposal makes perfect sense based on the information. I mean, I understand it's not magic. You had to do a little of this, a little of that, but I don't have any problem with the proposal. It works for a lot of reasons in my mind, the 75% of maximum, and then even throw in a 5-year bump or something like that. But as a starting place, for me, I'm happy with that. Both on commercial and residential.
The residential.
I am too, to be honest.
And I assume we would continue the practice of using the ENR. whatever.
Yeah,
And that would basically keep it moving until we do the next Nexus study.
Yeah, well, I guess that's a discussion item. Do we do that, or do we talk about, one of the proposals was, do a 5-year bump. The ENR thing, maybe it's a safer bet. It's defensible. It's not guesswork. It's common. It's understood by people. So yeah, as I think about it, I think I'd be cool with that.
Yeah, and if I had to give a recommendation, I would strongly, strongly recommend including some kind of annual automatic adjustment.
As part of the phasing in
No,
increases.
With the ENR?
Hmm.
Yes. Because I think there's been in the past where we've missed a year, as I recall, and then had to do a catch-up kind of thing. And that doesn't fly, it just doesn't look good.
Right.
Looks sloppy.
Yeah.
Do you need a direction or a
Yeah,
vote this
we
evening?
do, and with 3 of you, it has to be unanimous.
Julia, how do you feel about what Jim and I are okay with?
I'm fine. My concern, only because I want to be able to maximize park and recreation opportunities for our community, is the decrease in the funding. That's my concern.
I mean, I heard.
And especially with the
opposite.
dissolution of ACRA and not having outside entity support, all the onus is going to be on the city to provide all recreational opportunities, whether it's the pool, whether it's the bathrooms, whether it's Bryson Park, whether it's maintenance of a
Right.
proposed new park. And if the onus comes all back onto the city without ACRA support, with reduced funding, to me, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah. I mean, I
Thank
had
you.
heard people say, oh, these park rates are way too high. And again, as we kind of dug into it, we couldn't find any methodology for how they got to their current rate. We did find the study that set it years ago, and it just went up every year without another check.
So I can't
Again-
change what was done in the past.
Right.
My
I'm-
concern is the
understand.
drastic cut that this proposes when our needs could potentially be greater.
So again, this can only pay for the impact of new people. It can't pay for needs for residents who are here today.
Right.
We looked at,
Correct.
okay, if we had this many people, how much land do we have to buy? What's the
Right.
cost of land? So
And the
we
method,
factored in what it would cost to create, new parks.
This,
the methodology to come up with the park and rec fee is the same
Right.
methodology utilized on all the other fees.
Yeah.
So if it's right for them, it should be right for
I
park
mean,
and
the
rec.
issue is we have a operational, Parks and Rec. We don't have a Parks and Rec department. We don't have a budget right now.
Correct.
This will not fix that.
Right.
This only comes with development occurs, and it only creates like new things. It doesn't help run the pool today. And that's
No,
Yeah. the hard thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to figure that out, but
I'm no good.
You good?
Yeah. So.
I'd go
guess
ahead
at
and make
this-
a motion then to approve the recommendation from staff on the new fees as presented tonight.
And then our next step then would be the public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nay? Motion passes for giving direction to staff.
great. Okay. Thank you guys. And thank you, Cindy, for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
All right. That's one big one down. And then, Mayor, I'd remind you, we have members of the public. I don't know if they wanted to speak on that item, but,
Let's-
or they may want to speak on the next one.
Yeah, my apologies. Would anyone from the public like to address the impact fee discussion and proposals? No. Seeing none, then we will move to short-term rentals. And I can refer to Aaron.
Yes.
Yep. So first, I'll just kick it off and then Aaron will take up. But to Jim's point, tonight is really the kickoff of this short-term rental ordinance discussion. We wanted to get parameters from the council before we draft an ordinance. That draft would go to the planning commission, like we said, and then it would come back to you guys. So this is kind of a pre-draft discussion where we really hope to get a strong sense of kind of what you guys would like to see in the ordinance, and then we'll draft it.
We had talked about, I think Aaron, Derek, a committee.
And
of
that's all going to
council.
be that's all in the report tonight,
Yep.
is some of the options. And bringing it back to the planning commission. So.
Gotcha.
Okay, I put together a PowerPoint presentation. It just follows the outline of the staff report. So I will just go through this and feel free to interrupt if you have any questions. So,
I have one right off the bat.
okay,
On page 78, on the first page of the staff report, about 2/3 of the way down, it says, in addition to STR permits, the city also had
Oh, you're
6
right.
hotel, but then it refers to 8 hotel and establishments.
5, 6, 7.
There's 8.
Yep, that's 8. That should be.
So it
8.
should be 8.
Yes, and now, yeah, it's in this report correctly. Okay. So just a little bit of background on our short-term rental policies and ordinances here in the city. So in November of 2019, the city began to update the short-term rental ordinance. That ordinance was never adopted. I believe it was that time that the city council directed staff to kind of keep an eye on the number of short-term rentals and report back when we hit 20. I have reported back, I think, twice now in the last 2 or 3 years, with the most recent time being in October of last year, to give an update on where we were at, which at that time, we were at a 21 short-term rental permits, and talk about some of the issues we've been seeing at the planning commission level regarding short-term rentals. As you know, in last month, the council adopted the 45-day moratorium on issuing any permits. Coincidentally, we haven't really had anyone ask us. So we kind of went through a really active time with short-term rentals, and then it's been dead for, I don't know, Mason, what would you say, the last 6 months or so? So currently we have the 21 short-term rental permits. Of those, 5 of them are inactive. So 1 is for sale, 1 is pending, and then 3 are people that we just cannot get in touch with.
And there's no activity.
And there's no activity. And then and on top of that, we have our 8 hotels and inns. Did you want to say something?
Okay.
Tom? No? Okay. So next, that map is really hard to read, but in your packet, we put together a map of the short-term rentals and hotels all together. So this map is kind of to illustrate the concentration of them. And as you can see, the majority of them are concentrated around the downtown, but they are spread out throughout the whole city. Next slide. So to help facilitate our discussion tonight, we're going to use the ease philosophy. So with equity, administrability, stability, and economic benefits. So we ask that you keep that in mind when discussing the 6 topics that we are going to go through tonight. And kind of the way myself and Tom laid this out is I almost think of it as like a choose your own adventure, with these 6 topics and then some discussion points and kind of what would be most helpful to staff. If you've almost answered the questions in the discussion points, say, yes, we want this. No, we want this. Okay, here. And then we'll take that information to draft the ordinance, bring it to the planning commission for discussion, and then obviously bring it back to you guys for final approval. So the first topic is the location and density. The policy considerations that I'm asking you to consider tonight is, do we establish a density limit for short-term rentals in specific areas of the city? So that would be historic district, non-historic district, or do we look at other districts within this, other kind of ways to divide up the city? As you can see, the majority of them are concentrated within our historic district. So that's 15 of the 21 are concentrated in the historic district. Another thing to think about is if we do put a number, do we a percentage versus a fixed number? Staff would recommend a percentage because then that number grows and changes with the city population. In thinking about location and density, some of the benefits I see of having them concentrated towards your downtown is you have it's a more walkable. You're not impacting any potential, the parking in downtown. You have your visitors staying downtown, walking to get dinner, walking to our shops, things like that. There could be potential lessened impacts because there is a mix of commercial and residential within our downtown core. Houses are next to businesses, residential units are on top of commercial businesses, things like that. So that is a benefit of having them more concentrated downtown. And it also provides opportunities for visitors to stay in some of our historical homes, maybe not these ones on Main Street, but there's a lot of beautiful historical homes within the city that just capture the essence of Sutter Creek. Some of the concerns could be impacts on neighbors. Many of the houses in the downtown area are closer together than some of the houses in the further outskirts of the city. The loss of long-term rental housing in our downtown core, and then potential damages to those historic structures. So the next slide is our historic district map. Just again, might be easier. So the dark purple is our Main Street historic district or Main Street corridor, and then the purple is our consider just our historic district. Okay, so this is the first decision points options that kind of in our choose our own short-term rental adventure that we're going on tonight. So one would be to establish different density limits for short-term rentals within the historic district or outside the historic district. Then two would be do we want more districts than that? Do we want to divide the city up into 4 quadrants or more or less, kind of what that number is? And then how to handle, or if we do put a number, then how do we handle that wait list? So let's say we put it 25 units, we get to our 25 units, what do we do next?
Right.
So I don't know if we want to stop at each point or we want to,
I added the
Oh.
cap versus percentage.
okay. And then, yes, the
Cap.
cap versus
Right.
percentages. So do we want to, stop at each one or?
So I'd be happy to weigh in here. I did have some conversation with Claire, so I want to represent some
Okay.
feedback she gave me with regards to density. So she's concerned that density impacts all neighborhoods, not just downtown, not just historic downtown, because as she sees it, a lot of it has to do with maintaining the viability of a neighborhood. That is, this is my neighbor, this is my neighbor. My kids know this person, my kid can go to this person's house after school without upending that anywhere, whether it's in the historic district or up the hill, wherever it is. I tend to agree that getting into granularity with regards to density, I don't think is necessary, personally. I think, and that's just the density question. I have lots of other thoughts about the next things, but I'll stop and let the other council folks weigh in on just the density question themselves.
Jim?
I'm listening.
Okay. I do have concerns just on what Claire's message was through Dan on the neighborhood aspect and density. My next question is, how do you regulate that? Do you say there's no, side-by-side homes? There's a certain number of short-term rentals within a 4-house area, an 8-house area? How
So I
do
think-
you protect the neighborhood aspect, which
Yeah.
I highly
So
regard?
we did, one of the cities that we did look at was Paso Robles, I believe, that had that density with, you can't have neighboring houses. And so that's something we would have to come up with. And I do want to kind of refer us back to the ease.
Right.
And the like equity, and this is what's on the council, is balancing property rights of people too.
Absolutely.
And so I think if that is something that the council wanted us to pursue, we would have to look into it more of how do we regulate the distance between them while balancing property rights.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We also,
Um,
just the administrability, that's why we were suggesting divide the city into fifths or sixths, but don't do it block by block or, house by house. It just gets harder and harder. I think the smaller you get. And,
Would it,
and
so, sorry.
well, the one other thing is just from the comments so far, I'm not really sure how to interpret them. Like, so we saw 15 being in the historic district. Do you want to concentrate them in the historic district, which would protect outer neighborhoods? Or do you want to, Dan, you made a comment that you didn't really want to get granular on density, but I didn't really know what that meant.
So I think if you look at the map where you actually show the LTRs, you'll see clumps. And one of the thoughts I had was, is there a way to look at existing clumpage, so to speak, create radius opportunities by distance
So-
and reverse engineer a solution that gets close to, because some of this is making sense the way it's already sitting there.
And I would encourage the council, and sorry, I don't have it in the presentation up there, to look at just the short-term rental
Right.
map. It's because that makes it look much more concentrated with the inns and the extra 8 right
Right.
there. Which
Do you have
what
that one that you can
Yep.
put up with just?
Well, it's kind of overlaid with the hotels and inns.
Yeah.
It's, I think, your
I
third.
feel like that makes it look,
Yeah, but there's
much-
one with just the,
it should be in your staff report.
yeah, it is.
And it looks like, if you look at it, there is, I would say 2 clumps,
This
Yes.
one.
Yes.
This is it, right?
which is
second.
Boston Alley. We have
Yeah, it's-
Boston Alley, Broad. We have 2 on Broad.
This is it. I think.
Yeah. And then the Badger. Is that Badger?
So this is short-term rentals only on the screen.
Right. So the idea would be, and I'm certainly not going to figure it out here tonight, but, come up with some metric that says, hey, within this radius, you can only have X number of these things. And then, it's just a compass. And you go like that. And you
See,
that's,
yeah, and I'm in favor of kind of the dividing into 5 or 6 sections. Because that then I think helps the administration ability.
would it have different requirements, different density
Historic
requirements?
versus non-historic.
Yeah.
Yes, so
Yes.
Because what Claire is arguing for, and I agree, is that why should a neighborhood, just because it's downtown, have less or more of a requirement than a neighborhood anywhere else from the people who live there's perspective?
I mean, I guess the one answer would be,
Re-
well, it's also a commercial zone. So you're living in a commercial zone.
Which short-term rentals in commercial zones do not require a use permit. So our downtown commercial zone, Main Street, you would not require a use permit for them. They're not required a use permit there. And then we have one on Spanish China Gulch N is a commercial, it's a house, it's all houses there and but it's zoned commercial, so they are not required a use permit.
What does that mean in not require a use permit?
It's a permitted, it's a allowable use. So they just come in, they get their business license and TOT forms and they're good to go.
Okay, all the rest of the business doesn't apply to them.
So it
Yes.
seems like a zoning overlay would be helpful in this discussion.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Yeah.
China Gulch is the only one that is commercially zoned. Is a residential use in a commercial zoning.
okay, I got you.
None of the
This-
other STRs currently are in a commercial zone.
No.
Well, what
Even the
about
ones
dark-
in the historic downtown?
Dark purple, isn't that commercial or no?
That is, the ones on Main Street are all inns and hotels.
Right, there aren't any
Got it.
on Main Street. They're on Randolph or Broad or Gopher and all
Yeah,
that kind of
All
stuff.
right. So
But
if
we
you were
just had
talking
a pretty
about,
contentious application on that. And how do we deal with another similar situation that we had here on Main Street?
right,
Well, that goes to like what Erin asked in her her report in the beginning, you know, what are you trying to accomplish? What problem are you trying to solve? And so, to my way of thinking, one of the problems we're trying to solve is to create objective, clear requirements for these things and to minimize the administrative aspect. So it doesn't have to go before this committee and all that
Right.
kind of business.
Appeals.
So going back to your question then, Dan, your opinion on having different regulations for historic versus non-historic? Should it all just be one overlay?
Yeah, and I think, and the reason I would maybe suggest that, and I'm not hard and fast on these things yet, I'm still working it, but one of the reasons is because of the way things are right now. There's already a whole lot down here. So if we utilize that as some kind of template, they say that and no more in that area, maybe it could work. It's already done. And then you'd have in my humble opinion, you'd have something like a 2 or 3 year renewal period, at which time there'd be criteria set up. Whereas if you'd already hit the cap and you're looking where you have to thin the list, you know, you've got occupancy rate, you've got things like that.
Did you read your staff report? You're just jumping ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
She,
sorry.
No,
But-
that's okay.
But they, you know, it's hard to talk about one without the other.
Yeah.
Because
No,
So if we stuck with your radius, you'd say one short-term rental in a 300-foot circle. And you're saying that circle would be the same. I guess the question is, would you exclude commercial zones? So are they like donuts in these
Maybe.
circles? But, right, so
Maybe.
you're saying it's the same radius if it's downtown versus if it's up in Golden Hills, it's still 300 feet.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see some kind of model like that to see, because I can't imagine it in its entirety. I'd have to kind of see it to see, well, does that make sense or is that just a foolish idea? I can't kind of see the whole thing without some modeling.
And and again, with 300 feet says, you know, if your neighbor grabs it, then you're out of luck, but 2 doors down, they're back in business, right?
Yeah,
they're
anytime,
in a different radius, they're in a different area.
yeah, anytime you try to do that.
That's just,
But then I think one of the things when you have the cap, because the cap is part of this discussion, right? I'm in favor of a cap, by the way, and I think a percentage probably makes sense. What do we have, 1,500 homes or something in Sutter Creek?
yeah.
So 2.5% of that is like 30. Might be a place to start, just throwing it out there. 5% seems like too many for this town. We can, you know, visit this thing 5 years from now again. I mean, if we can come up with something that we can live with for 5 years, from my perspective, that'd be a good start.
So maybe, you know, if we won't get an answer to choose your own adventure on each slide. But I think it was a good conversation. Maybe we try to go through all of them and then maybe we could circle back with a holistic look.
Yeah, I think, do we have a consensus on a cap and whether it's percent versus number? And we don't even have to pick what those numbers are, but what way we're going to measure them, or?
I would,
percent seems like a more, because that can change depending on.
That allows for
building.
growth.
Yeah,
right. And yes, cap, and
Okay.
yes, percent. So my,
yes.
There, we got something.
Yeah, so if we're at a cap, maybe going back to number 3, how do you handle a wait list? So
So-
again, I think this idea of inactive, like if we don't get any activity in a year, do we kick them out?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to thinking why do we want to allow short-term rentals?
right.
That's
For
the-
utilization.
Yes.
We don't want
collect
them.
TOT
yeah,
and to bring
absolutely.
visitors to our community.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing that for the city, if you're not,
Correct.
we're not benefiting, and that is and that's further down. But if we don't collect TOT in a year from someone, then they're off.
So that
yeah.
helps, but let's say we're absolutely full, we hit this cap.
Yeah.
Whatever the rules are,
Right.
is it first come, first serve? If you're active, you hold on to it forever. I mean, a lot of cities do that.
I think that
Not a forever.
the renewal timeframe, whether that's 2 years or 3 years, at that time, I think we can develop some criteria that would help cull that list.
But if
And-
somebody's, again, say everything's working, they're all following the rules, they've all invested and created these short-term rentals and they're running them as a business. Feels like if they're running, they get to keep it maybe, right? I mean,
Well, and then there would be no more, you mean, because the
Right.
cap has been reached.
Once the cap is reached, yeah, as long as
somebody feels
somebody's
like a
functional.
vacation, if somebody new comes in and says, I want to do that too, we're like, sorry, we're at our
Right.
cap. And
One thing you could consider, I suppose, is the level of participation, the vacancy rate. Is it is one person bringing, $10,000 to the city on an annual basis and somebody else, bringing 1,000? Can that matter? I mean,
Can that be managed in terms of record keeping? I would,
Yeah, Mason does a great job of providing the
Okay.
data of what people are submitting every month to the city.
right.
So we
Well-
see those that are just kind of TOT trickles in from, and then those that are active and,
Regularly, yeah.
yeah.
that seems pretty subjective because if someone says, hey, I'm in there part of the time, I only give it up for a short-term rental. So I'm not going to bring in as much as somebody who has a short-term rental that's going to be available year round.
But that's owner
I don't-
occupied, yes?
that's what we're talking about. So
Yeah.
I-
is like, should you have that
So-
slot in the way, or should you move to the wait
So
list?
in other words, we're going to require a minimum income?
No, if
That
if you
seems-
got a license and you're renting once a year and we hit our cap, should you get to keep your license or should somebody else get a chance?
But that's what I'm
kind of the
saying,
question.
then are we, and I see that, I'm just looking at the other side, that it's going to be interpreted as, oh, you have to bring in X amount of money before I get to keep my rental.
I mean-
But it's only going to be, I only want my short-term rental, available 3 months a year.
And so
then
maybe that's another category we look at is a full-time short-term rental versus a part-time short-term rental. Like if it's someone, if it's their personal vacation home that they rent out occasionally versus someone who buys it as a business, they never intend to live there. They only intend to run it as a short-term rental. Because I mean, that's a balance.
the
You don't
language-
want to take someone's business, say you get it for 3 years, and then who knows if you'll get to have your business
So the
again.
language then could be to maintain a short-term rental, you have to, I'm just throwing this out, you have to make it available 9 months out of the year. I just picked 9,
I mean,
it
you
could
can
be
have the-
6.
Say, once you have the permit, it's yours until you give it up or you're totally inactive. I mean, I'm just arguing both sides. right?
Yeah.
You could say rent
Sure.
it once a year and I have my permit and I get it forever.
I mean, I think just
Take
my
it.
2 cents. People who participate in these short-term rental, if they're consistent renters using like Airbnb or a short-term rental service like that, I feel like, you have people who, once they find a good one, they try to keep using that because they're comfortable there and they have a good experience with that renter, the owner of the property. If we have this natural churn where, you might only have it for a year or two and then they're off the list and someone else rotates in, you're going to have people who may not come back because they lost that property that they were comfortable with. That's just a thought too. There is natural churn as well. There's the permit is non-transferable if the property sells as well. So if they sell the house for whatever reason, that permit goes away and then that new owner would have to reapply if they're interested in doing so.
I just know that there are short-term rentals available in other areas. For example, you look at Aspen, Colorado, or places that have just seasonal attractions, that their short-term rental is only available during peak season, like summers or holidays. So I think, I think we either need to discuss or figure out a language in terms of availability versus how much you're going to bring in versus, yeah, I have a short-term rental, but I'm only going to use it during the summer and Christmas. That's the only time that it's going to be there. Do we need to set a minimum number of months or that it's available?
I like the idea of having a different category. more than one category of short-term rentals because there are going to be homeowners that want to use it themselves and only want to rent it out occasionally. But then that creates a problem of how do you monitor? Somebody says they only want to rent it out once in a while, but they're renting it all the time and then cheating on the TOT.
Oh, we have two categories, and we had a cap and they rent it all the time. So they're like, oh yeah, I'll just rent it occasionally, and then we have
Yeah.
no way to verify.
Yeah, that creates a problem. But
And, we can drive ourselves crazy with rules and people figuring out how to get around the rules, but we got to keep in mind, we have 15 right now. So,
And even of those 15, we took off the ones that, there's 2 that are off on the market. There's actually 3 of them. So one of that 15 is also on the market.
Yeah. Yeah.
So really it's 14, and I don't even know of those 14, like has that Bryson submitted any TOT yet? No. So I mean, we still have a handful of those 15, 14 that have not ever submitted TOT and maybe not have ever rented them out.
Right.
so we're a long way from that cap, that 20 cap
Yes.
that we,
Like on
it-
paper, we look like we're at 20, but we probably have maybe act 10 active, like
Mhm.
actually active.
Probably a little more than that, maybe like 12 that are like really consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some that are, sporadic, some that, we
so yeah, why don't we keep going? Because
yeah,
one of the issues was accounting and are people reporting accurately?
Right.
That's another issue we don't really know. So they're telling us they're not renting, but we don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
So the next discussion topic is owner occupied versus no on-site owner. And almost hearing our last discussion, it sounds like there might even be a third category, like partially owner occupied.
right.
Because the way we describe owner occupied is the people that are renting a room in their house, or maybe they have an accessory structure that they're renting out. We do have one of those. We don't allow owners to rent out ADUs, but they could live in the ADU and rent out their main house. So that would be an owner occupied short-term rental. The non-owner occupied are the typical ones. You're renting the whole house out and the owner is not there. So there's both
What's the timing, Aaron, on the short term? What distinguishes it?
less than 30 days.
Less than 30.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
So anything over
Okay.
that would be a long-term rental.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
you wouldn't pay TOT on that.
You would not.
No.
But under 30, you do.
Yes. And so if you could long-term rent out an ADU, but you can't short-term rent
Okay.
it. So when an owner is present, it may reduce the noise, parking, and maintenance issues, and it may improve that neighborhood compatibility that we were talking about. Also, it provides an opportunity for people to help pay their own bills.
Absolutely.
You rent out a room, helps to pay that, and even some companionship for residents, because they have someone there with them. So the non-owner occupied, it operates more like commercial lodging, higher guest turnover, and less oversight. Obviously, boss isn't watching over you. And then there's potential impacts on the noise, neighborhood, and parking, things like that. So kind of the decision
Yep.
points. Oh,
Well, so the owner occupied, that's kind of the, I don't know, idealistic vision of what Airbnb is. I think of ours, we don't think any of them are really owner occupied.
well, we have one owner occupied where we have
Okay.
one property that they have short-term rental for a single room in their house. I don't think they have not submitted TOT.
No.
And we have one other that is an accessory. It's like a unit on the back of the garage. It does not have a kitchen. And that's.
So kind
Sutter,
of jumping
do we-
ahead, to get to the decision points,
Oh.
I would
no.
suggest if we have this category of owner occupied, we consider no limitations. But
I would agree in terms of just come get a permit and pay the TOT.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's all.
agreed.
Yep. So that was the first question is, do we differentiate regulations?
What
So
about, but what about the sticking point I did have was parking. Is even at the owner occupied, should that be or not be a consideration?
yes, I still think parking should be a consideration because whether, a car parked on the street does have neighborhood compatibility issues.
Fair enough. And I
And-
think I would agree with that.
but the renter is probably not inviting 5 other friends over to enjoy happy hour at the room they rented
Right.
in the person's house. So you're not going to have that issue with the extra
Right.
parking.
And if they are, the owner's going to come down the hall and say, hey,
Yes. So it sounds like we are in favor of having different regulations for owner occupied versus not owner occupied.
right.
Well, and I said no limits, and Dan said yes. I don't know how the others feel.
Well, we haven't, yeah, we haven't said
Limits,
what the regulations are, just that they could be different.
Well, all that whole list of things that people have to agree to for the STR in terms of reporting and 24 hours and all that kind of business.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the limits you're talking about, Tom, or are you talking about caps and all that?
I'm saying,
stuff?
yeah, there's no cap.
Yeah, I
There's
would,
none.
I
Correct.
would say,
I don't see a reason to have the cap for owner occupied.
Okay. So we need to wait till Jim comes back to see if he agrees with that.
uh-huh.
Okay.
Um, Again, I don't know if you want to take comments from the public at some point. It's a long
Definitely.
discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not hogging this mic. If you guys need to come up and say something, please feel free. You can
You leave them
you
up
can
there,
push
it's
me
20
down.
days.
Come on up.
Yeah, a family member just bought a home.
Your name is.
Oh, my name is Barbara Combs. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yeah, pull the,
There you
there we go.
Okay. Yeah, a family member just bought a home that was a short-term rental. And the owners said that it was a business. But the neighbors told us, in the disclosure forms, they said they rented it out from 0 to 25% of the time each month. The neighbors told us it wasn't rented out very often. So that house was next to another house that was also a short-term rental, and they both sat there empty a lot of the time. And they were not pleased with the fact that the neighborhood didn't have
Care.
They didn't have any neighbors. They didn't have any people across the street. So it was just on that one side of the street. And it's kind of a open area. So they didn't feel like they had any neighbors. And it didn't seem like it was generating much money for the city. The other thing is it was close to town, about a 5-6 minute walk to Main Street. And these are the houses that we residents want too, right? They offer us some of the same benefits that you mentioned as well. So we don't have to drive around as much, right? We can walk into town and so forth. I don't think that only occasional visitors should benefit from that as much as the residents. And that's how I feel about it. There aren't a lot of homes that come on the market in that part of the town. And these are really desirable homes, the ones that are
But-
close to town. So
That home, it's possible that home was a vacation home for someone or a second home for someone.
no, it was listed as a business. Well, that's how they identified it. It was their business. I'm not saying they never stayed in it, but it was primarily bought as a business. They remodeled it, put it on the short-term rental market. Another thing, Airbnb was originally designed as a market for sharing rooms in your home. This whole thing is really blowing up in a way that it was originally not envisioned by Airbnb. So anyway, those are my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been sitting there a long time. Brian Combs, Sutter Creek, 284 California Drive. In general, in my own personal opinion, which is not mine, short-term rentals, other owner occupied, I don't have a problem with that, but short-term rentals are anathema to good residentials. All right. Garbage, noise, parking. These are all issues that pop up. You can get on the internet and find it real quick. A lot of municipalities don't like them. People don't like them. Well, I own a house. I want my property rights. I want to make some money. Fine. But you have to think about the impact on your neighborhoods. I really recommend too, you talk to your police department. Are these things a problem here? I moved here from Southern Utah, and I got to tell you, the short-term rentals in that part of Southern Utah are a real problem for the police. Parties, noise.
in Springdale, Utah, I had to pass another noise ordinance because they bring these big parties in and make a mess. So I don't recommend them, in my opinion. Also, are we screwing the hotel owners here? Are we, carving on their market? Are they full all the time? By short-term rentals, take away hotel rentals from our hotel industry. And I really think I talk to them real hard too about the need to dilute rentals in the neighborhood. So that's my opinion. I don't like them. My idea of a cap would be 0, and residential zoning, 0. Commercial, fine, work something out, but I don't think they're any good for the city. I'd like to see it get better. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That certainly can be an option.
Yeah.
No, I'm just showing, I'm just saying that that is an option.
Yep. Let's keep going.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, so we wanted to check in with Jim
Yeah.
on something. Jim, we talked about something when you were gone. Needed your opinion.
So whether to allow unlimited owner occupied short-term rentals.
Owner occupied.
So they live there, they're on either in another structure on the property
Yeah.
or,
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, but you have to, confirm that. It's not,
so it's their, it
somebody
has to
gonna
be
try
their
to.
primary residence, not their
wiggle-
vacation
Yeah,
rental.
exactly. Has to be a primary residence.
Okay. Okay. So next discussion.
And they can't have just a babysitter at the house saying that there's an owner in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do,
Next discussion is permit duration and activity requirements. We've kind of already started to touch on this, whether to establish time limits and activity requirements. So to issue permits for a defined period of time, for example, 3 years with an annual renewal. That's how the city of Plymouth does it. Require proof of the ongoing activity. So they are, is it monthly or quarterly submit their TOT?
we send the forms out for 6 months at a time, but they report monthly.
Okay, so, we should be seeing monthly, what kind of activity they have, but staff would recommend setting a time frame. If they haven't rented in X amount of time, they would be put on our, monitoring list or kicked off the list.
I know, Mason, at the last meeting, and to kind of merge in with this, is you said that, we were behind in our TOT
Mhm.
because there were a couple big usual
Mhm.
TOT establishments
Yep.
that hadn't paid.
Yep.
So how do we monitor
They,
and
yeah, so
enforce
those,
that?
the entities that we were discussing were hotels. They were not, short-term rental properties that
okay.
we're discussing. So it was just, these are very consistent payers that were just late by the time I had to submit my reports. And then since then, we've gotten their payments and their.
Can you make a general statement regarding regular payments from short-term rental owners?
What I define as regular payment?
Yes.
Monthly. Maybe even, once every couple months, maybe there's a month where they don't pay, but regular payers are monthly. We have a lot of them that are monthly. I mean, they operate them like businesses. So, but yeah, I can't really disclose specifics, obviously.
No.
But
But if someone has a short-term rental,
Mhm.
had no one occupying it, say, for a month, do they report no income?
Mhm.
They still have to give some type of report.
correct. They must report zeros. Otherwise, we send them a letter asking for them to submit a form, even if it does say 0. And that, if they submit a report that does have data that there are late fees that are incurred because of their tardiness.
So even in our current short-term rental application process and use permit, we do have, one of the conditions is that we can remove you from the list, and we've actually started working on that, coming up with that list. That's kind of how we determine we have those 5 inactive ones. And we are ready to initiate the process to remove, I think it's 2 that just don't respond to anything we send.
bye-bye.
So
Do you have established criteria for removal? Or, how do you, do they know
like,
what it is?
it's at a public hearing, and the planning commission would at the public meeting say why they're being removed, which
Okay.
is non-responsiveness. Like Mason hasn't been able to get in touch with these people
Okay.
for months.
All right.
So.
Yep.
So again, if we did add requirements around permit duration and activity, we would need to figure out what to do with permits that don't have activity. Do we deem them inactive? Are they automatically voided? Do they go through this public hearing process where we bring it to the planning commission, give that owner an opportunity to say yes, or to give us a reason why they've been inactive? You know, I think we had another owner reach out to Mason and they were going through some health issues or something like that. And so they're getting themselves caught up. So that would kind of be that
I don't have a
opportunity.
problem in giving the owner an opportunity, but not, endless, 3 months later, there's still no activity. They don't come back.
Yeah,
So the process should be pretty finite
yeah.
I mean,
in
there's
terms
people who
of the
just
steps.
disappear, don't respond. Those are kind of clear cut, I guess.
Yeah.
If we have this opportunity for them to come to the planning commission and plead their case, is showing up enough, or are there certain reasons that has to be a certain reason?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, again, we'd have to think of some rules.
And-
around
and-
this.
Yeah, and a deadline. So if you try to contact someone and there's no response in 2 weeks, and another letter, no response in 2 weeks, then it should automatically go to the planning commission to meet, because that's 2 opportunities that, have been bypassed. And also, I think it upholds the responsibility of the owners, that we're asking that, okay, if you're going to have this, then you've got to communicate with us because we're kind of your business owner.
Yeah, and that, I can think of an example, someone who wanted to get a short-term rental permit, then she said, I'm gonna remodel. So I just told her to wait. But I think if someone had their permit in place, they hadn't had activity for 6 months to a year, and they came to us and said, because I'm in the middle of a remodel, that could be a reason the planning commission could allow them some grace in that situation.
But there should also be a clause, if you plan to not have your home up for short-term rental, you have to let us know
Yeah.
30 days ahead of time, so we know not to come after you.
Yes.
The ones
So that's just a communication.
the ones that are regular, like we have discussed, like monthly activity, the ones that are like that, which are most, I would say, are communicative. And if there is a case where, they may not be around because of a family emergency or something of that nature, they let us know. And they submit their $0 sheets. Just let us know, hey, I was gone, I told you, so here's my sheet to keep me timely.
Right.
So they're usually pretty good.
I feel like it's every time we start talking about, and then we can take it to the planning commission and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm more of a proponent of, if you're gonna be in the business, you got certain responsibilities, and if you don't do those, you're dropped out, especially if we're gonna have a cap. I don't know, maybe that's too, hard
So
ass.
that the permit holders, if you're not treating it like a real business, then nope, we want serious
Yeah. I mean,
professional.
Yeah.
So,
So go ahead, Jim.
well, that begs my question. When does a residential zone? It's self-explanatory. It's residential. When does a short-term rental cross over that line of being a residence and and then becomes a business? And now we're just saying, well, if they're not treating it like a business, then we should boot them off. Well, if we're treating them like a business, we shouldn't allow them into a residential zone.
And that's kind of,
I mean, we do allow CUPs for home-based businesses, right?
home occupation permits for home-based
Yep.
businesses. And they have to maintain the appearance of a residence.
right.
But you're right. I mean, the homeowner is using it as a way to make money and as a business.
Again, if you guys want to allow short-term rental in a neighborhood, residential neighborhood, I think when we get to this point, we could be fairly generous, like if there's no activity in a year, right? I mean, some decently long period of time. But then I like where Dan was going, where it'd be great in terms of administratability if we could do it at a staff level and not have to go to the planning commission after we don't hear from somebody.
But you're encouraging someone in a residential zone to turn that short-term rental over every weekend, or maybe even more often than that if possible. So you got, traffic
Yeah.
impacts and.
Well,
and new
I'm
people
saying,
coming in.
they could do 11 months of zero rentals and rent it for 2 days, but they're submitting their reports and they're responding. If we don't hear from them in a
Well,
year,
I'm on a different subject. I'm
Yeah.
talking about this high level of a decision to say, we're going to allow a business to occur in a residential neighborhood, or we're not. That's. where
but I'm
coming
saying, I
from.
don't think we're implying you have to rent it a certain number of times. It could be very infrequently if you
Well,
want to allow that, but it is. I think these are a business in a neighborhood and that's
Yeah,
fundamentally what they are.
I think that's just kind of part of the nature of the beast. I don't like the idea of having someone rent it out as a short-term rental for 6 weeks, 4 weeks a year. I think and we can avoid what you said about the planning commission and that deal directly like a business with the city. If you're not going, here's the requirements. If you're going to rent, you have to rent a minimum number of days per calendar year, January through December. If you're not going to rent it out for an extended period of time, whatever that extended period of time is, you must notify the city within 30 days that you are not going to put it up there.
I mean,
I think you can spell all that out pretty clearly ahead of time, what you want that neighborhood to look like.
but Jim's raising, other cities have a maximum number of days. And so they don't allow
so
professional
would you
full-time
want one
business.
next door to you? Would you want a short-term rental that's turned over every weekend? There's a new group in there right next door to you.
If that's, if,
It's a
If
business.
it's-
It's like a hotel.
if it's maintained like a residence, then what,
Okay.
and
well,
the,
then
and the trap, and,
certainly you're,
well,
I'm not trying to say there's a right or wrong answer. What's your,
I would
would you,
want
personal-
that to be maintained as a residence, including traffic, noise, and treated as any other neighbor. So if there's a different neighbor today than it was 4 days ago, my expectations don't change.
okay.
The neighbor may change, but that doesn't mean the policy and the way that it's managed changes.
Jim, for me,
Because I won't have them over for dinner.
Jim, for me, the house next door several years ago, did have short-term rentals. I don't think it ever was permitted or anything like that. But the good news was that during the week, it was really quiet.
Right.
But on the weekends, there were oftentimes, it got loud, and it's before they were being managed as well as they are now. I mean, I don't hear many complaints these days about them.
No, I haven't heard of a lot of complaints either.
Yeah.
But I do think it's an important question.
And I
It's a
think-
residential zone. It's a residential area.
But that's
And-
why then it has to be maintained and the
So-
ordinance and the behavior.
And so in some but in some residential areas, the neighbors are going to be like you. As long as they do this, it's fine with me.
Right.
But that sure wasn't the case on the house here on Main Street. They were everybody was dead set against it.
I think also there was.
We're given a chance.
There was the historic value of the location. I think
Well-
the fact that the number of.
As long as they maintain
that
it
we
like a
have.
residence though, I mean,
Mhm,
keep up and
mhm.
take care of it. It's just a different neighbor every
But
weekend.
that was a long-term rental. As soon as that long-term rental occupants, and I knew that family
Okay,
that were there long-term,
yeah,
they kept
they-
that
they're-
immaculate. The care
right.
kept
I
that
know,
immaculate.
but
As
that's,
soon as they moved out,
but that's,
that place
that's
fell-
irrelevant to the question.
No,
whether it should be, whether, if you should have,
That short-term
you should have a short-term rental next to other permanent residence.
So an interesting thing that's been brought up at planning commission meetings by neighbors is they saw it as a benefit because if you have a long-term renter next to you that you just don't like or that
You're
is,
stuck with them.
yes. But the
I can
short-term one, you
attest to that.
turn over all the time.
How many times the cops were down at the house at
Yeah.
the bottom of my driveway?
Yeah.
Mm.
And I also hear,
Constant.
it's, if you have a short-term rental who's only renting it out a little bit, you're barely getting any TOT tax. It's off market for long-term rentals. It's off market or unoccupied for neighborhood
Right.
feel and compatibility. It's like either give us TOT, give us a long-term rental, or come be a resident of Sutter Creek.
Right.
Yeah, empty house.
kind of
Derek, does this all ring a bell with you about how difficult it was to get an ordinance the first time around? Yes.
Yeah.
Jim, to your point about, I think what you're asking here is, do we really want to be in this business? Do we want to allow this to happen?
Is it a big benefit?
And
Is it?
I guess I'm sitting here thinking, I thought that train had left the station. I thought the city had already agreed. I mean, we've got all these other ones and it's a real thing. It's 2025.
we-
People use it.
We just put a moratorium on it so we could
Figure it out. Sure, fair
Like
enough.
if
Fair
you could,
enough.
you could just say, once the existing short-term rentals, they won't be renewed, and then
Well,
they all go
so
away.
I want to point out it is one of our top 3 revenue generators for the general fund.
Okay,
Just
see,
keep
that's
that
a
in
question,
mind.
that's a question that
So
is important.
it's crucial. I think it's very crucial.
TOT or short-term rental
Separated
TOT?
from hotels.
I would say, well, I would just say, I think of it all
Yeah.
But you
in
have to-
one.
I mean, it sounded to
Well,
me
I
like
mean,
we
it's all
wanted like
valuable.
12 or 13 sporadic
Yeah.
short-term rentals.
Well,
Are
we
they a
have a
big
lot-
economic boom?
And the point about the hotels, if you didn't have short-term rentals, the hotels would be fuller. So it's a little complicated.
Yeah, yeah, are you just,
I
are you
can't
just,
get into specifics, but I really, from the data that I see, I really don't think our hotels, I mean, maybe they have a few vacancies, but I don't think they struggle that
no, I don't think
badly.
they're struggling,
I-
but
So Derek, I mean, I don't know if
some people won't rent
cities
a
that have an
hotel.
outright ban on all short-term rentals, is that there cities that do that? Yep.
I think, is Carmel by the Sea one of them? I think Carmel,
No,
they're not.
they have a registration
Okay.
program.
Not to take over for Aaron, but as far as the permit duration and activity requirements, I think we're a little bit into some weeds according to what is highlighted here. I would like to see short-term rental permit term 2 years. I would like to see that, that gives the owner time to establish, maybe regular activity and be able to build a kind of a clientele with still the city being able to oversee. So I'm just addressing another point.
Aaron, at one point, did you say that it would be like like in Plymouth or something? They have a 3-year term with an annual renewal?
So it was 3 years and then,
Because wouldn't it just be renewable every 3 years? If
now
it's
I'm
a,
trying to remember.
if it's a 3-year term?
Well, it could be it churns after 3. Maybe you don't get the option to renew after 3.
No, I think it was 3 years. I think what we did in Plymouth was it was good for 3 years. And maybe they were reevaluated at 3 years, but you paid an annual renewal fee.
Oh,
So annual license, but you don't lose it after 3 years. I think once you have it, as long as you're operating, you
Yeah.
renew
As
for
long
3
as you're
more.
following it,
Yeah.
dotting your i's, crossing your
Right, for
t's.
sure.
right.
Um,
All right, what's next, Aaron?
Where are we?
Permit.
Permit process. So, review the current short-term rental permit process. So currently it goes to the planning commission.
Right,
It's a conditional use permit. It's a public hearing, so neighbors within 300 feet are noticed. We publish it in the newspaper. So that is what the fee is $600. And then once they get that permit fee, they don't pay again. They pay annually for their business license renewal, but we're not asking them to renew anything for their short-term rental permit. Like I said, short-term rentals are allowed by right in the commercial zones. So potential changes was we could consider a staff level approval for residential short-term rentals. We could also do staff level for owner occupied short-term rentals and public hearing for non-owner occupied. Apply objective standards and conditions, and that would reduce processing time and administrative burden on it. So, or we could continue doing the public hearings or if we divide the city up into certain different quads or radiuses, you could do different regulations for each kind of area, which seems very
That gets more
complicated.
complicated. a
Yeah.
lot more
Yeah.
Complicated.
right.
Do we have the staff to, I mean, I'm just going to an extreme. Do we have the staff to say, planning commission is out of this loop? It's only going to be through the city to do the enforcement and renewals and
Yeah, I think so.
evaluation.
So in the city of Jackson, it does not go to the planning commission. It's myself and the building official that process these. We do an inspection there. We
Right.
physically go out, visit the house, look for certain things. They require a lot more information. We want to know where your gas shutoff is, where your water shutoff is.
Good.
And all of that in your handout, in your handbook for your renters, so that if there's an emergency,
Right.
they can handle that. So we don't require any of that information here.
Uh-huh.
And we talk about this, I think.
What are some of their other aspects of their ordinance that might be applicable to us?
That was kind of the
Do
big
they have a
difference.
cap?
No, so I've been working there for what, 2 years now, and I've had 2 short-term rentals. So
What's their total, do you know?
not many.
You know, and the inspection adds administrative cost. We've talked about that, you know.
Right.
And then you also start to look at, we have a long list already. It's like,
Right, we do.
how many more requirements do we have than a hotel? Like hotels don't have to do all these hoops, but
Right,
it's just something to think about.
right.
Well, I think a hotel and a residence should be treated differently, and I think there should be stricter requirements. I mean, there's going to be some natural requirements in addition that you don't have in a hotel. But I'm just trying to find a way to short circuit
Is
some of the
is there a,
process.
Derek, is there a legal obligation that a city might have in regards to making sure that a residence that's going to be a short-term rental is up to a certain standard and up to code and before it can be used as a,
Not a legal obligation, we can do it.
okay, well,
So in Plymouth,
I don't
we
like
did
to
it as an
speak-
administrative use permit,
Which means no planning commission.
no planning commission,
Right.
and we had objective
So
standards. so
I'm
that-
all for that myself, creating objective enough criteria that it's just yes or no. Do they meet it or not?
Yep.
And boom, get it done. And
but-
I like.
and
what you
no,
have.
no notification of neighbors required then in those, if it's just a
If it's ministerial, there wouldn't be, right?
No.
No.
Do we notify neighbors now when a
Yes,
house?
so a public
Yeah.
hearing.
Yes.
So they would get their notice 10 days in advance of the public hearing.
So then you get into this subjective versus objective, right? So you have
Yeah,
2 identical short-term rentals, and if
exactly.
8 neighbors show up for one and it gets
Exactly.
denied, but the other one gets approved.
yeah, that's,
And not pointing fingers or anything else, but we've seen a lot of situations where people weren't notified. I mean,
really?
yeah, the one up by my house, I wasn't notified, the one on Trail.
Hmm.
Right, you know,
Yeah.
I look out my house, he's right there. I found out when I saw new people showing up, said, oh, Joey, you turned your house into a
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, you know, and the people that were in here a couple of months ago, you know, many of them said we didn't get, you know, but again, I only raise that because unless there's a really good reason to have to do all that, let's not do it. Let's just land on the criteria and let it be ministerial to whatever extent possible. That would be my vote.
So for both owner occupied and non-owner occupied.
Yeah.
We're probably gonna have to vote on these at some point, because I'm hearing very different opinions, and we only have 3 of you
Well,
tonight.
we only got 3 people here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
tonight, Too.
It's
I
a
don't-
good start.
I could do a continuation.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is our,
Because
Yeah.
I think Claire has some really strong thoughts about it, and I know you voiced some, but I'm
No, fair
sure
enough.
that this discussion would have raised other questions
Right.
or.
But the idea of
concerns
just
that she
banning
had.
them all outright, you know, you guys got very different opinions, so I think,
Right, that's why. I don't know, Jim, were you really landing there, or are you just posing the question
What-
in terms of just banning them outright? I had never heard you say that before.
it has crossed my mind.
Uh-huh.
It
Yeah.
would certainly make things a lot simpler.
Sure. There's no doubt there.
Yeah.
There's no doubt there.
Yeah.
And that's why I ask, well, is there really a huge benefit? I mean,
There is a
we're
fiscal
here with
benefit.
just all this create turmoil that
Yeah.
just tonight on this discussion, we had all that turmoil the last time we tried to do an ordinance. And what's the end goal? Are we,
Right.
because we got to have these short-term rentals?
So I think the end goal is to make something that's financially viable for our city to make it work.
We,
And
doesn't
there's
doesn't
going to
really
be,
make it work. I haven't been convinced that it does.
So I am kind of hearing that we think the missing council members are going to have some input and do we do this all again
Well,
with them all here?
I think
We could also have Mason bring us back some more detailed financials on it.
well, again, you know, we have to be careful. Those are like, it's like sales tax. It should be treated pretty confidentially.
yes.
I'm trying to be very vague as much as I
yeah.
can. Yeah.
well, you could just give total.
Dollar
I think we
amounts.
could take some of the feedback we heard and maybe
Yeah.
have a refined
Yeah.
thing. I mean, I know
Right.
one
We-
point Claire has always made is when you're traveling with a family, you know, renting 3 hotel rooms is prohibitive versus,
Right.
Absolutely.
and you know, so there's,
Okay.
and we know there's a market need that people both want to
Yeah.
offer
See,
the,
that's what I want to,
Yeah.
convince me. Tell me why we really need it.
Yeah.
yeah. So again, I think the counter argument would be, you know, we have people applying for these. So people clearly want to run a short-term rental
Well,
for income to maybe pay their
yeah.
mortgage or whatever.
Some people have turned it into a cottage industry.
Right,
Too. I
right.
mean, it's not just like a mom and pop that, we need a little extra income. They come in, it's speculation. They buy a house,
Yep.
fix it up, that they're in that business.
Yeah.
Right. And so
They're
again,
really in
we have the range, right? And so, you know, again, I don't know how many professional Airbnb landlords we have versus
It-
people who kind of invested.
You know, I've floated this idea of a complete ban, but on the other hand, maybe we're trying to solve a problem where there is none. You'd say we're at 12 or 13.
Right. And, you know, all the
And
objections.
it took 4 years or more to
Right.
get to that 12 or 13.
But Jim, the meeting we had last time,
I know.
I felt at a loss in terms of objective criteria to help
Right.
make a good decision
Right.
and a consistent decision.
And again, people raise these concerns, parties, whatever, but we don't really,
Never
we
had
haven't
any
had
case.
complaints.
No.
We don't have a police issue.
No, I don't think that's an issue.
No.
Right.
No.
I just think process-wise,
So I would thank Aaron for all this layout. It's pretty comprehensive. It
Right.
brings up, I think, you know, the questions we need to ask. But in reality, is this something we can completely take on this evening without 2 members here? And I'm, how far into what you presented here do you want to go through this evening realistically?
Well, I'm open to doing it all, but again, do we need other
Not me.
people? Okay, so the
Sorry.
3 things that I have been able to take away from the discussion so far is that if the cap would be a percentage versus a hard number,
Mhm.
unlimited owner occupied short-term rentals would be allowed,
Mhm.
and that we move the process to an administrative use permit process at the staff level versus the public hearing.
Correct.
Okay?
I think that's good.
Hmm.
I think that's a start. I just don't know if we're able to have an end game this evening. That's, I think a presentation of this information also needs to be discussed with Susan and with Claire present. But I would like to still see, you know, not that I'm big on committees, but an opportunity for voices to share.
Well, it's amazing. to me.
So, I know we had talked about that in the past, so I don't know if that's still, Aaron, you said, yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Well,
So,
that is one of our next steps is do we form an ad hoc?
that'd be a
committee?
tough one with 2 people missing tonight.
yeah, I'm not saying do it tonight.
So if
No,
we
I'm
could-
just saying
I know,
it's part
I
of
know
the
we're getting late. I think one area we really haven't talked about is this whole idea about accounting and are people reporting honestly. I think having a ordinance is an opportunity to put in some auditing capabilities
Yeah.
If you're
Yes.
gonna have it, yeah.
if we're going to have it. So it seems like that might be something we could get agreement on tonight. I see a lot of heads nodding about.
Everything I read in here looked
Yes.
really
Yeah.
reasonable and smart, and
Okay.
I would support it in terms of the auditing opportunities that some of the existing.
Having a
I
number that has to
support
be shown on an ad, so we know that they're
Exactly.
registered.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
And I do want to say, we have made a few changes to the application process in the last few months. We have a more in-depth cover sheet that has we're asked for more information. We are asking for the site plan and the floor plan, just to have more of that information. And I believe we all are also asking for their handbook, so we understand that the rules that they're enforcing. One of the other things that we
Did we have a handbook require, I mean, this is our handbook of what you
Yeah,
have to.
so that's
we
what
have
I was
that?
gonna say. Another thing that some cities require is that they make a good neighbor brochure. And so that's available to, like, this is what your responsibilities as that property owner. Another thing we required in Plymouth was that they provide local attractions to encourage visitors to
Oh,
visit our.
Like that rack in the lobby of a hotel.
Yes.
There's
Yep.
Exactly.
Kennedy Mine, Night
Yep.
Foundry. Okay.
I love that.
Yeah, that's good.
So. Okay.
So it seems like, and Tom and Aaron, I'll ask you guys this, is it fair then to put together what we've said we've had consensus oftentimes with most of the things we've talked about. Could you take a stab at rolling that up so you don't have to start from scratch with the two new council members? Say, here are the things we talked about. It seemed like there was a consensus about this, more than just those three things you talked about, Aaron. I mean, because there were, certainly limits, on the number of them. There was some kind of, agreement that some kind of density thing. I mean, just try to move it along so we don't have to start from scratch again when
We
the
can
other.
try. I think if we continue this item, we would use the same staff report, right, if it's continued, but we could update the presentation in the meeting.
To
And
incorporate.
I think you would take public comment again, so that would be fine.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know if this will complicate it more. Do you think I should present this to the planning commission and get their input at all at this point, or wait still?
I would say wait.
Okay.
That's my first thought coming out. Only because it's kind of like the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. Let's tackle what we have here first before we take it and broaden out and make, a big mushroom out of all.
Okay.
Worse. So, we'll do the KISS method.
Okay.
Well, and for Jim's
And I'm
point
not calling
too,
you stupid.
I just want to, I think Tom mentioned earlier, I'm bringing a revenue kind of analysis report on the next one.
Yeah.
TOT will obviously be on there because, like I said, it's a top 3 general fund revenue generator for us. So we can talk about this at that point as well, just to say, this is how significant. And yes, it will encompass the hotels as well, but
Well, you can subset the others without giving us personal information, and
Sure.
and please do subset it so that we see the exact
Yeah.
dollars on a monthly basis that are received by
Mhm.
short-term rentals in Sutter Creek.
versus the hotels and then
Yeah.
total.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're talking about,
Mhm.
short-term rentals. Right?
Yes.
That's fair, Tom. You can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
So
sure.
I think at this point is it also fair, I don't want to cut off discussion, but to recommend that we continue the proposed ordinance discussion to another meeting. And so we will not have a motion this evening.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you need a motion
Yeah,
to
if
do
you
that?
could second and vote on it,
Can I make
I-
a motion or?
you can make it.
Okay, I move that we continue the discussion on the ordinance for short-term rentals to the next available meeting to make sure that we have inclusive representation from all members of our council.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay. Motion passes to continue the discussion to another meeting.
We're making progress.
Yay.
We're making progress.
Well, as I recall, wasn't there when we had instituted the moratorium about this was going to take a year to do or something, or
It
6
could,
months?
Up to that. So.
Yeah, so
We're doing fine.
Yeah. All right, administrative agenda C, amendment to city manager employment agreement.
Thanks, Dan.
Need discussion, regarding the agreement in the council?
So just, I want to put on the record, because there is compensation, we do have to orally report before we take this action, because this is your highest ranking executive. Effectively, this would give our city manager $15,000 a year. Now, he's already making that currently, but under the prior agreement, that money was being used to pay down his housing assistant loan, which he was given when he started employment. That loan is paid off. So now that will just simply be $15,000 a year in compensation to him. So I just wanted to put that on the record, but everything else is self-explanatory. So that's, I don't have anything else to say.
So is it subject to PERS? If,
No, it shouldn't
Yeah,
be.
I don't think it will.
I
you
don't.
just said compensation, but but as if it's a housing allowance, does that make it exempt?
Well, it's
from PERS?
compensation in that it's I'm talking about what the Brown Act says. The Brown Act says anything that deals with any form of payment or fringe benefits, we have to report out the economics of that. Actually, we have to put it on the record in the meetings, meaning I have to orally present it to you. But I don't have an opinion on that.
But I exceed the max, so it's already, but it won't make a
Okay,
difference. for
okay,
now.
that's all right. Fine.
That's what I was essentially going to say, yeah.
Okay, it doesn't
Is
make a
that,
difference.
is that there's a cap that CalPERS sets and it would,
Okay,
yeah, it's a kind of a mute point.
okay.
Council, do you have?
I got one thing to clarify, Derek and Tom, so that we're 100% accurate. So you indicated that the initial housing stuff loan was paid back. I think more accurately stated, part of it was forgiven and
Correct.
part of it was paid back.
Yes, half of it was forgiven, the other half was paid back.
Right, just to clarify.
You're right. I apologize.
Yeah.
I was misspoken.
Yeah, fair enough.
Or I misspoke.
Thank you, Aaron.
Take care.
Then I will need a motion to approve the Second Amendment to the city manager employment agreement.
I so motion.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, council.
So that concludes the majority of the business, mayor and council member reports. I have just one ACRA summary report. We had our final board meeting today. All the membership fees have been returned to the city. Is that correct, Mason? We've received our membership fees from ACRA.
We have.
So the only other amount to be returned back to the cities
Impact
is
fees.
the impact fees. And that we don't know what those amounts are going to be.
Thought
We
it was
know
the
what
other way
the,
around.
we,
Thought we got our impact fees, but we have not got our membership fees.
no, our
No, I think the membership fees came and we're waiting for.
membership fees were sent out. So it's the impact fees. The impact fee, we pay 8% of the total budget. So we would get 8% of whatever's left over
Hmm.
back to the city. That amount isn't known yet because there are still bills to be
Mhm.
paid. We will have a better idea at the end of this week.
Mhm.
So, and then we were told by county council today that the cities actually have to do a formal vote. It's not on the agendas, and he said, whenever you get it done. So at our next meeting, we will have, as an action item, to approve the dissolution of ACRA.
Okey doke.
So we'll await word about, how
Correct.
much, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
We're hoping that anyway, we'll get it details. Anyway, Dan,
I got nothing tonight.
Jim,
No, I couldn't attend the fire district meeting last one because of the holiday. So when it their meeting's on Tuesday and we had our meeting at the same time, so I have nothing to report.
All right. City Attorney's report. Better make me go to the page that I don't have. I think,
We good, Bob?
there it is. Information and correspondence.
Yeah, none tonight.
Do we have nothing? At this point, we will go into closed session.
No closed session tonight.
No closed session. The report from closed session is none, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
Muchas gracias. Rose number 1 and Rose 2. Take care of your shoulder.
Jimmy, get some ibuprofen.
May I inherit that lovely paper that has all your lovely notes on the resolution?
Oh. If you can read my scribbles, let me put this back in.
I used to work for doctors and dentists. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, 84, wait a minute. Let me get this in order, 90. There, hold on. That's at the very end. What happened to, I had the middle section here. Anyway, it is to-do.
It's a water.
Yep,
board.
yep, there. So operating, whereas
Managing or operating.
rather than running, so. And then
The city's
add
current
current,
resource.
with cooperation,
with
insert there, and then insert challenges from the systems and take out challenges there.
Yes, and then Dan is.
And
the lovely
out the
team.
T, out the lovely T, not just the T, the lovely T. Thanks, boss. You need any help putting stuff away? Will they do that in the morning? My plan for this week? Weeds, more weeds, more weeds. In my yard, yeah. I don't like to do a lot of spraying because I have pets. So it's a lot of weed pulling.